Yo, what is up, everybody? Man, I am recharged. I am ready for 2024. Happy New Year. Hope everybody had a fantastic Christmas, a fantastic New Year. Let's see who we've got in the house today. Charlie, John, Klaus, Nicholas. Morning, Nicholas. Admiral Lumpbelly. Is that a new person? I don't know. Everybody's got these crazy names. Pavel, Maddie's here. Maddie wants me to leave breakdance alone. Oh, man. You and Ruben, right? You and Ruben. Gregor's here. Silent Phil is here. Andrew's here. Kevin Roberts is here. Farah's here. Beautiful. Love this. Vit, happy to see you. Steve, good to see you. John, Donatus, Jaroslav, Paige. Fantastic. Numbers are looking good. Pretty early, and they should continue to grow here. All right, let's talk about what we're doing. We're doing a little bit different on WDD Live, but this is the good thing about a concept like web design for dummies. It's like, man, we can talk about whatever we want to talk about here, and we can go in a bunch of different directions. We can switch up the format every now and then, which I think is good. I think variety is good, and we have some important work to do today. I'll give you a little bit of background, okay? A few weeks ago, did a whole video where I basically tried to build a fairly simple layout in the Gutenberg block editor. Now, let me share my screen real quick. I did a write-up on this process, and I did this experiment for a very specific reason, okay? I was on Twitter, and, I wasn't even talking about Gutenberg. I basically said, hey, every WordPress page builder is grossly underpriced. I was just making a general statement about the pricing of page builders in WordPress land. And then here comes Matt Mullenweg chimes in, and he's like, except for Gutenberg, right? Both free and priceless at the same time, just like WordPress. So what I did is I basically asked Matt, I was like, okay, but how long until I can build full custom websites with it in an efficient, scalable, maintainable way? I'm just catching you up on giving you some context, right? And he says, since 6.4, so about 5 weeks ago. And so I was like, okay, interesting. Maybe I need to take a look, a closer look at how the block editor has developed. As you guys know, I don't spend a ton of time in the block editor, okay? I live in page builders, and I look at every page builder I can get my hands on when I have time, and so I know a lot about them. But I haven't done a lot in the block editor in general, and I specifically not with native blocks. So when I've done stuff in the block editor, it's been with generate blocks, for example. I've looked at some other block systems and so on and so forth. Anyway, this prompted me to want to, because he's basically saying, hey, the 2024 theme, that's what he's talking about, the 2024 release, right? So the 2024 theme, which is an FSE theme, he's basically saying this is what you can use, okay? And so I was like, well, let's see. Let's find out what the experience actually looks like. Now, keep in mind, there is some very important context here. The important context is that the block editor mission is supposedly for everyone, which means that, and in my estimation, they are competing with the likes of Wix and Squarespace. This is like the vision. They want anybody, they want to democratize publishing. These are their words. They want to democratize publishing. They want anybody to be able to publish online. They want anybody to be able to build a website. This is the context. Okay, the context is very important to this entire conversation, okay? They would like it, I'm sure, if it was as easy to build a website with WordPress as it is to build a website with Wix or Squarespace. To me, you can't democratize something if it's very difficult for people to participate. You have to make it very easy for people to participate if your mission is to democratize it. You want everybody to be able to do it, right? That is the context, okay? This is very, very important context. Very, very important context. Now, before we get too deep into this, let me tell you what we're going to be doing in today's WDD Live and why we're doing this, okay? So I put out an open call. When I make a video like this, when I am critical of a tool, something like that, or I advocate for something, like we're going to talk about the section element a little bit in this video too. So I have a very detailed article basically saying this is how a section element in a page builder should be structured, and here's why. And very important, I give detailed reasons. I give detailed videos. Everybody knows, this is not a secret, that I have hundreds of published hours of literal video examples and instructions, okay? This is very different from most people. This is just a fact. There are a lot of people who say, no, he's wrong. No, don't do it this way. No, don't do it. These people have 0 hours of published video. They can't seem to find the record button on any device, okay? And I think that's very important. If somebody cannot or is not willing to demonstrate or provide specific examples, how seriously should we listen to them? Should we take them seriously at all? Now, mind you, most people that don't agree with me, don't like me, don't whatever, it's personal attacks. It's, it's a bunch of nonsense. It's not actual like rebuttal. It's not logic and reason. It's not video examples. It's not detailed write-ups. It's just, calling names. It's just, nonsense, drama and nonsense, right? So Rob, that's the person we're going to be looking at his rebuttal today. Rob comes along. Now, the reason I'm doing this on WDD Live is because I think I have to, out of principle. Because I put out an open call. Like I said, I put in an open call and say, hey, if you disagree, if there's a better way, if I'm doing something wrong, go ahead and record your video, and I want to see it, right? Let's show everybody. Okay. Rob has done that. And I could dismiss the video that Rob made, because Rob, I'll just tell you right now, it's an hour and 15 minutes long. Rob does not build anything in Gutenberg in the video. Rob does not build a block for Gutenberg in the video. It's an hour and 15 minutes of Rob telling me that I'm wrong in a bunch of different ways. And that's what we're going to look at here today. But Rob does not build anything in the video. However, I can't, now I could just dismiss it and say, Rob, you didn't build anything. Okay, you didn't show us anything. So I could dismiss it, but I'm not going to, because this is the first time somebody has actually stepped up to the plate. And if I dismiss it, people will say, see, Kevin, he'll just dismiss it. If you do make a video, he'll just dismiss it. He won't even take it seriously. He doesn't even really want the debate. He doesn't, we don't want that to happen. I have to. I got to look at the video. I got to do the rebuttal to the rebuttal. It's just something that has to happen out of principle to prove that, hey, all right, you make a video, we'll talk about it. So that's what we're doing here. Now, like I said, there's 2 ways to make a video, right? You can make a video where you're like logically laying everything out, and okay, now here's where I think, we're different, or why we're different, and why it should be done this way and not that way. Then there's the videos where it's like, like Rob's video, you'll see this in the video, but it was actually worse in the interaction on Facebook. And then there's been interactions on Twitter as well. People come at me like I've insulted their firstborn child. Like, because I didn't love the Gutenberg experience and said some things were not great about it. It's like I've like, taken their child's photo out of their wallet and just roasted it in front of everybody. And this is like their reaction to it. And that's kind of the vibe you get from Rob's reaction. I don't think, I can take it, whatever. I don't care. I don't care what their reaction is. I don't think it's super helpful. And in this rebuttal, I'm actually going to do my best. Like, I want to build a bridge, because the general conclusion that I've come to after watching Rob's video, and I went back to my team and I was like, am I missing something here? What is there seems to be a gigantic disconnect between like people who think like Rob and people who think like me. It's like a massive disconnect. Like, something is not connecting. Because as you're going to see in the video, the things that Rob are saying, it just seems like in a completely different universe. It's just a completely different universe. And my team has back-end developers, right? Like people who live in Rob's land. And basically, you know, they more or less came to the conclusion, like, they don't think Rob has ever used a page builder. We're like, Rob doesn't know, we don't think, what Bricks is even capable of, or what it looks like, or what the workflow is. Like, you would have to just not know anything related to something like Bricks to make the arguments that Rob is about to make. Now, I don't want to poison the well or anything like that. We're going to take the thing point by point by point, right? But that's just the reason I don't want to just go after Rob, right? Because he is wrong, and I'll clearly demonstrate that, just like I have demonstrated every single time, because I demonstrate. That's what I do. I can demonstrate it. But he's wrong in a way, not that's just like overly opinionated wrong, or like he's just wrong in kind of like well, he lives in this land and he's never experienced this land over here. And, you know, he's arguing from a place of like, he just doesn't even know. He just doesn't even know. So I want to build that bridge because I want to show Rob, especially if we're going to democratize WordPress, especially if we want the block editor, because a lot of block editor people are like Rob. And if we can't build a bridge between us and the Robs, Gutenberg is going to continue to suck. I'm starting to understand why Gutenberg sucks so bad. Because a lot of the people that are working on it, I don't think have ever experienced. There's been basically, I would guess, zero R&D of like, how does Bricks work? How does Breakdance work? How does yada, yada, yada work, right? They're just in their little worlds trying to build this thing called the block editor. And they don't really understand, it seems, how all these other things work and how this is so much better over here. How life is so much better on the other side of this fence. So this is an important live stream. And I do want to say, I'm just reading a couple little notes here on things that I wanted to make sure that we touch on. Okay, so I got that one. I got that one. Building the bridge. I think if we build the bridge, this may be a little tedious. His video is not super entertaining. Okay, so it may feel a little bit tedious. The big point I wanted to make was it's still important that we do this. We're not going to do this every single week. Okay, so don't worry. The WDD format that you know and love is going to come back next week. We're not going to do this every week, but I think regardless of how tedious this is, it's still important that we do this. Very important. And it's important that we try to build this bridge. And because I want to change the landscape of front-end development in WordPress. That's like, it's kind of like one of my core missions, right? And we can't do that if all these people are being excluded. And so I want to bring more people into the fold. I want more debate generated. I want more discussion generated. I want to build bridges as much as we possibly can. This is not about like hating somebody else's workflow or philosophy or anything like that. It's literally because, let me go back to the original concept of Gutenberg is for everyone. Guys, Gutenberg in its state is not for me. So they can't make the argument that it's for everyone. I'm not even saying it's not for most people. I'm saying it's not for me. So you failed. You failed in that mission because it's not for me. And it's not for a lot of people like me. Most people like me. It's not for them either. And that's what we're trying to point out. And it never will be for us if we don't build these bridges, if we don't show them why it's not for us, because they don't know, right? It's not that it would be one thing if they knew what we thought and knew what we believed and knew what we felt and knew what our workflow looked like and said, nah, we reject that because we think we've built a better way. That's not what's happening here. They are building the block editor completely ignorant of all of the things that we do day in and day. They appear, I'm not going to say 100%. It appears as if they have no idea what we do, how we work, the tools that we use, our work. They have no understanding of any of that. They are just off in their own little world. That's, I think, the situation that we're in. So if we build a bridge and we say, oh, hang on. None of that stuff that you're doing even though you claim it's for everyone. None of that stuff is for us. Because here's what our workflow looks like. Here's what our tools look like over here. And we just got to bring them into the mix so that they can experience some of that. Okay, and that's a little bit of what we're going to be doing today. Key points of my article and my video that Rob was supposed to address in his rebuttal. When I said, hey, if you're going to make a rebuttal, you need to address these things, okay? Number one, that Gutenberg is, my point, Gutenberg is not for everyone. In fact, I say that's an impossible vision. I think that if Gutenberg maintains that vision, it's going to be, it should just rebrand to Hindenburg because that's what's going to happen to it if it maintains that vision. Gutenberg largely fails. This is my point. Gutenberg largely fails when it comes to site maintainability because it lacks stylable classes, it lacks functional custom CSS, and it lacks partially synced patterns. I know the partially synced patterns are coming, but it does not have that as of right now. And according to Matt Mullenweg, I've been able to build maintainable sites since a few months ago or whenever 2024 came out. So, but I can't. Matt said that you can build custom maintainable websites with just the 2024 theme. That's what intrigued me to test the native blocks and functionality. So if you're going to suggest a third-party block system, that's not what this video was about. That's not what the context of this discussion is about. If you are going to say that a custom block is the solution, no, that's not what this video is about. Because a custom block is not for everyone. Not everyone is a React developer. And that's going to be a big part of this, okay? And most people think, I did a poll, and most people think the editor, the block editor, is ultimately a replacement for page builders. That is an additional context to this discussion. So the whole thing was about native theme, native blocks, pretend that I just came over from Wix. What can I do? What can I get done? How easy is it? What does the workflow look like? That was the context of the video. Okay? Now, we're going to get into Rob's rebuttal here. Let me go ahead and check the chat. We're going to pull this up right away. Okay. Let's see. Calisthenics Ireland. Let's see. The biggest problem with Gutenberg at the moment is they don't realize they're building a page site builder and have done nothing to see what works in that area already. I tend to agree with that. Okay. Let's see here. There's a lot of internal discussions going on. We really need to build that bridge. I live mainly in Blockland, but really want some of the page builder land goodness over here. We need to learn mutual appreciation and respect as a community. Let's see here. My firstborn child, Elementor, wonders what this guy's problem is. Yes. Yeah. Elementor users know. Okay. Give him time. If he wants to do it with Gutenberg, he needs 2 weeks. Yes. Rob made, this is Rob's video. We're going to go through it together. I'm hoping this is not going to be, this should be, Maddie says this is starting out great. Okay, good. It could get tedious, guys. It could get tedious. I don't know. But like I said, we have to do this. It's something we absolutely have to do. I cannot ignore the video. We can't dismiss it. Especially if we want to build the bridges, this just has to happen. Okay. So if it's super tedious, I apologize. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming next week. All right. So I've got the video up. First thing we need to do before we get started, just test that you can hear audio. So I'm just going to play up just a general portion of this. Let me know if you guys can hear the audio properly.
Bottom video he has linked in this bullet. It says utility classes versus custom classes, how to build maintainable.
Okay. Are we good on audio? Just let me know. I'm just going to go through we're not going to watch the entire video together. Like that'd be way too tedious. Okay, good. People said audio's good. I've just got some timestamps and I want to hit timestamps. I will link to the video. The video is actually unlisted. I will link to the video. You can watch the entire thing in its entirety. I am not cherry picking here. I am making this as fair as possible. By the way, a lot of people say the number one argument that you will hear against anything that I say or do, which is the laziest, weakest, coward argument that anybody can possibly make, is everything Kevin says and does is just to sell XYZ or make a buck or something like that. It's the stupidest, weakest nonsense. Like, I don't really want to have a debate. I really can't explain why I disagree with him. I just want to attack him. Like, I just want to dismiss everything that he does. That's what people do. And Rob does some of that in like the first 10 minutes of this video, which is super unfortunate. I'm not even gonna nitpick any of that. I just got specific timestamps of specific arguments, and we're going to listen to them, and then we're going to talk about them, and we're just going to move on. And people can go watch the entire video of Rob's rebuttal if they want to. Perfectly fine with me. And I will turn up the audio just a little bit on Rob's video here, because I think it's natively a little bit low. So I'll increase his audio a bit. Okay. Because I want this to be as fair as possible, as objective as possible. I'm going to try not to get worked up. There's a couple places where it's just like, it just stuff not computing. It's just, it's like a complete breakdown in just logic and reason and just like, but I'm just going to try to stay calm, and we're just going to work our way through it. Okay. All right. We're going to go to timestamp 140 to get started here. Let's go in here. All right, 140 or thereabouts, and we'll just listen from that point forwards.
And he knew, you could tell his intent right out of the gate was just to prove that you couldn't build this layout with Gutenberg in a quote-unquote maintainable way. That he kept on using this word maintainable. And, I'm not going to lie. I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't quite understand what he meant by maintainable at first. I had to go watch some of his other YouTube content and read some of this article, and he had some other links to some other stuff in here that kind of outlines what he means by maintainable. He highlights this reaction that he got out of Matt Mullenweg. He tweeted to Matt on the 29th of November. He says, "How long until I can build full custom websites with it in an efficient, scalable, and maintainable way?" And Matt responds, oh God, this is going to take me to the tweet. Sorry. He responds, since 6.4 ? So about 5 weeks ago. Now, my guess is the reason why he responded with a question mark is because he probably also doesn't know what Kevin means here by efficient, scalable, and maintainable.
Okay, let's just pause here. I think this is a gross misunderstanding or misinterpretation of Matt's response. First of all, the idea that somebody like Matt Mullenweg doesn't understand what building a scalable, maintainable website means, that's mind-blowing on its own. When I read Matt's, and you guys can let me know if I'm wrong, did I misinterpret Matt Mullenweg's tweet? And by the way, this is not the first time that I have talked with Matt on Twitter. I know what Matt's tone and general response style is to criticisms or tweets like this, right? When Matt says, since 6.4, that's it's obvious that since 6.4, about 5 weeks ago, that's when 2024 came out. That's when your question was answered. That's how Matt's responding. Matt's not I don't really know what maintainable, efficient, scalable means, but I think since 6.4, maybe 5 weeks ago. Which one do you think it is? Which Matt do you think is responding there? I'm pretty sure if he didn't know what maintainable means or scalable means or efficient means, he would clarify before answering the question. He wouldn't just be like, oh, well, I mean, I don't know what you mean by any of that, but maybe since 6.4. I don't think that's... So when Rob says that Matt doesn't know what maintainable means either, man, that feels like a magnificent leap. That feels like a magnificent leap. I get that Rob doesn't know what it means, but to think that Matt is answering questions when he doesn't know what the person's even talking about, that just seems like a stretch. Yeah. I think my interpretation is correct there. Now, here's the thing, this is what's frustrating, honestly, is the video starts around, I don't know what this guy means by maintainable. I linked, I knew, hey, maybe people won't know what I mean. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 6 hours of video. If I had to just off the top of my head, most of my videos are like at least an hour long. This is almost 6 hours of explanation. And still, it's not good enough. Still, it's not good enough. Cite your sources, give plenty of examples. 6 hours of content apparently wasn't enough to drive the point home. And I don't think it's that difficult of a concept, right? And he goes on, I'm going to save you from it, but he goes on to try to define it. Do I even have that timestamp in here? Yeah, okay, let's look at 3:15 because he goes on to try to explain it, and you're like, he's explaining it, he still doesn't understand what it is.
Okay.
And I don't think it's that hard of a concept.
This bottom video he has linked in this bullet. It says utility classes versus custom classes, how to build maintainable websites like a pro. That was the only video I could find in this list that kind of like outlined what he means by maintainable here. And my definition of maintainable just means that like you're building a website with best practices and it's not going to be problematic in the future.
Okay, that's not an answer because you're basically, that's like an abstract version of it. It's like, but what does that mean? Like, what does it look like? What are the steps involved in maintainability or the principles involved in maintainability? Yes, we don't want a website that breaks in the future or that we can't scale or that we can't adapt and change and yada, yada, yada. But that doesn't answer the actual question of what are we looking for when it comes to maintainability.
So if you try to reuse some of the content again on another page or another part of the site or on a different site altogether or whatever, that you can build the thing and have it be reusable and maintainable with little to no effort across multiple areas. So it's not like a single solution approach. You want to try and build it in a way that makes it reusable, I think is kind of what he's getting at when he says maintainable. Now, to me, when I hear maintainable and I hear maintainability, I'm thinking like, okay, well, whatever code I have to write for this thing, I should put it in a GitHub repo, because in GitHub and in Git is where we maintain code bases. So if we want to be able to like track versions and, see if what broke at a particular time or whatever, we can go back and trace the version control back and see like, oh, okay, for maintainability reasons, something broke. We need to backtrack and figure out where it broke. Oh, it broke because of this. And then maybe I need to write some tests or whatever so that in the future it doesn't break again. Like to me, when I hear maintainability, I think like writing tests, using version control, some of like these best practices. A lot of what he's going into here is about using utility classes and custom classes, and it seems to be a very like CSS first approach to thinking about maintainability, which is interesting. I'm not gonna lie, like I kind of like that. And after while I was watching this video and watching him
Okay, so we'll try to work to build a bridge here. There are many aspects to maintainability. For sure, if you have a code base and you have a GitHub repo and you want version control, that is an aspect of maintainability. But in page builder land with people building websites in the real world, the thing they're most concerned about are examples that I've given time and time and time again of styling maintainability and content maintainability and HTML, PHP, JavaScript maintainability when we deploy those things into something like a card, for example, a query loop, whatever. And so the crystal clear example of styling maintainability is when you build a card like I did in this example, and I use that card 1,000 times across the website or however many times it is, and then I need to make a change to the styling of that card. Do I have or do I not have a single source of truth for that styling? Because if I don't, that's going to create a nightmare scenario. If I do, it's going to make my life very, very, very easy. Now, what about content maintainability or the HTML maintainability of that card? If I create 1,000 copies of that card and I decide I need to add an icon into that card, all of them, all instances, can I do that? Do I have a single source of truth for the HTML of that. This is what I mean when I talk about maintainability. Because in the work that we do in page builder land, this is the problems we encounter the most. And it's the most basic aspect of maintainability, by the way. It's not even like the whole GitHub repo, version control, code base, all that stuff. That's a back-end person's version of maintainability, right? But even so, when he's thinking about writing code in component form, that he's doing that for a reason, right? It's not just like, let's have a gazillion instances of this block of code, let's create a component and let's use that. He's thinking along the same lines. Well, that's what this looks like in page builder land. Classes have always been the foundation of maintaining styling of reusable items or elements across a website. So we're not talking about like some outlandish new concept. HTML and CSS are the fundamentals of building a website. And so this is, it shouldn't be anything new. It shouldn't be anything new. So that's what maintainability is not a hard concept to understand. So, and I don't think that he's pretending to be confused. I honestly don't know. This is why I went to my team and I was like, what is the disconnect here? That they don't understand that like custom classes is how you maintain styling of elements across a website. That's the day one CSS solution. So I don't, they look at me like I'm coming from like outer space, like I'm an alien that just landed here talking about classes. And that's the disconnect for me. I don't understand that. Okay. So let's go to 5:15. Let's see. Let's, I think we're already there actually. Yeah. Let's let him talk for a little longer.
Create this layout. I kind of felt for Kevin, because I'm not going to lie, WordPress isn't perfect. The editor isn't perfect. They're still working on it. However, it is a free content management system that costs you no money to use, where everything that he's provided here costs money. All of his stuff that you can buy on his website costs money. He's basically a YouTube influencer in the WordPress realm. If you ask me, that's kind of what it's coming across as. And so he's making money off of YouTube views. So like really, Kevin, I'm sorry to say it, but you're really not doing anything for the community. You're not really like giving back by going through this little experiment and just showing off like all of the pain points of using Gutenberg to build this specific layout. Now, it is interesting to watch. I'm sure there is some like lessons to be learned, at least for anybody working on the Gutenberg.
Okay, so you saw some of it, right? This is what I hear all the time. This is what I hear all the time, and it's lazy, it's boring, it's uninspired, it's not true. It's just everything that's wrong with trying to like debate somebody on the internet. I got some really good comments from the Gutenberg participants, contributors, official contributors to the Gutenberg project. You can go to my blog and you can look at their comments. They left very detailed. Let me just go. I'll just show you. We'll just scroll down here. So let's see. One of them was Anne right here. Look, I'm a sponsored WordPress contributor, ran the FSE outreach program for 3.5 years. Look at her detailed response. Very polite, very detailed, very empathetic, very agreed with a lot of what I had to say in my video. This is important. This is why we're doing this, okay? Somebody said, I don't see what's the point in debating Rob. We're not just debating Rob. A lot of people think like Rob. A lot of people make the arguments that Rob makes. So we're not debating Rob. We're debating that side of things and making this accessible to everybody who wants to be a part of this discussion and who maybe wants to start to build some bridges, right? So Anne came in. Look at Riyadh right here. Another Gutenberg contributor. Another concise, respectful, detailed, empathetic reply to the video. We are building bridges. We are making progress. We are having meaningful conversation. Not in Rob's video, but elsewhere around this topic. So it is important, right? Now, Rob tries to make excuses for Gutenberg, saying, "Hey, it's only been 5+ years. It's a free project. It's oh my gosh, the sob story, right? The sob story for Gutenberg. How dare you? How dare you talk about the free thing, the gift that we've been given? And that's another thing I hear all the time is like, oh, if you don't like it, go contribute to it. Be a volunteer. Sorry, I don't wake up in the morning going, I think I'm going to volunteer my time to a multi-billion-dollar organization. I didn't ask for it to be free. I'll write the check right now. Can I write checks and then they'll build it the way that I want? Because if that's the case, I'll write a check right now. I don't care that the fact that it's free is not an excuse. The fact that real people contribute to it and they have feelings. I get all that. I get all that. Fully understand. The fact is, it's been 5+ years. That's not a young thing in the internet, okay? Bricks is young. Bricks is, if you want to talk about young, Bricks is young. Bricks blows the block editor out of the water with an absolute cannon, okay? So the fact that Gutenberg is 5+ years in development and still at the stage it's at, I wouldn't bring that up if I were you. I would not bring up the age of Gutenberg. If I was debating for Gutenberg, I wouldn't touch that shit with a 10-foot pole. Like, never talk about its age. That's not a plus, okay? That just goes to show that this is a struggling project, okay? So that I wanted to make sure that we hit on. Okay, 635. Okay, this was an interesting one. Let's go to 635.
For itself. I can agree with that. However, again, everybody's workflow is different. At whatever, everything that anyone tries to build on the web is going to be different. And so, I guess I just don't understand the usefulness of creating some very, very specific design or layout and then saying, oh, well, I can build this in this other editor super easy, but I can't build it in Gutenberg very easily. Well, perhaps your design is very conducive to what you have available to you in Bricks. So,
do we think that this design is something special or difficult? Or here's the thing, right? If you were going to hire a front-end developer and that front-end developer was like, this is my preferred tool over here. And you were like, okay, let me give you an example layout to build because I want to know if you know what you're doing. And I also want to know if your tool is capable of doing that thing. And then they were like, oh, well, that layout, that one's not really conducive to this environment. We're going to have to take a little bit of a, different approach to that. Now, that layout might be conducive to a different environment that you're used to, but it's not really conducive to my environment. No, guys, I chose this layout because it's really not that difficult to build. It's like I threw a softball at Gutenberg. I didn't throw my fastball, okay? My 100-mile-an-hour fastball combined with a curveball and a sinker, like all in one. I didn't throw some magic shit at it. I threw a very basic layout at it, and Rob's analysis is, well, that might be a layout that's conducive to your environments that you normally work at. This is a very basic environment. There's my point was, any functional environment should be able to handle this, like with one hand tied behind its back and whistling and one eye closed, one eye on the sports game over here. Like, this is not difficult. I threw a softball at it. And so there's a disconnect in my brain where somebody's like, well, that layout might be conducive to this other environment over here. That doesn't make any sense to my brain. That I cannot compute that. Anybody who considers themselves to be a decent front-end developer and using a decent tool should be able to build this layout. This is not a question. This is not a debate. This is a very easy thing to do. Not just build it, but build it with no tricks, no magic. It's HTML and CSS. No magic required. No magic areas, no VS Code, no React, no nothing. Just build it with HTML and CSS. It's not hard, okay? I threw a softball at it to see what it would do. Swing and a miss, okay? But Rob's saying, well, it only missed because the bat was wrong, or that ball is not the not a regulation ball, my friend. This is, I don't understand this argument. But notice what Rob said right before that. He said, everybody's workflow is different. Everybody wants to build in a different way. It seems to me that goes straight to my initial argument that the vision of building something for everyone is broken by default. That seems to be a confirmation of that fact. So I wanted to make sure that because I make that point over and over and over again. It is the vision of the block editor that has failed the block editor and has failed us. You cannot, if you said, Kevin, how would you best destroy a product that you envision? Like, if you wanted to sabotage it, what would you do? Well, I would, number one, say that it's for everyone and try to build it for everyone. And number two, I would design it by committee. Those are the two things. I would design it by committee, and I would say it's for everyone. I would tell the committee that it's for everyone. Make sure you make everyone happy. And 100% that project's going to fail. Well, guess what? That's exactly what Gutenberg is. That's exactly what that project is. It's designed by committee for everyone. So yeah, let's keep going. All right. Perhaps design. Okay, yeah, we did the design. Okay, 8:04. I bolded this. This is going to be 8 minutes to 12 minutes, and I bolded this because we're getting into the good stuff here. Okay, here we go.
We're going to do exactly what he says he doesn't think should be done right here. So
in the article, I said, you can see it right here. I said, you can't just tell me to build a custom block because that's not for everyone. That was the whole point. It's nobody coming from Wix. Imagine you're coming from Wix, right? And you're like, all right, I'm going to try this WordPress thing. I'm going to give this WordPress thing a shot. And put yourself in the eyes of Matt Mullenweg right now. Rob seems to not understand what Matt Mullenweg's position is, right? Put yourself in Matt's position. Do you think that when somebody says, I want to come from Wix to WordPress, what do you think that Matt wants their experience to be like? To me, it's they install WordPress, they install the 2024 theme, they start building stuff with blocks, and they like the experience, and they're like, damn, this is a enjoyable experience. Look at all the power under the hood here. Look at how thoughtful everything is laid out. Like, wouldn't he want that to be their experience? I don't think he wants their experience to be like, all right, ready to get my hands dirty, coming from Wix. Step number one. Okay, got the 2024 theme installed. What do I do next? GitHub repo. Okay. Not super familiar with that. Let's just put that aside for a second. Can I just build a simple layout for myself? No, not unless you know React. Get your VS Code open. Yeah. See, this is not the experience I think he wants people to have. Do we agree? Do we disagree? What I mean, is it the experience that you want to have? If you decide, okay, I think I'm gonna put bricks aside for a moment. I'm gonna go try to build some things in the block editor. Do you want step number one to be GitHub repo? Do you want step number two to be learn React and build a custom block? Do you want step number three to be go find third-party systems that you like? Because the block editor doesn't do a lot of basic stuff. And if you want to do those things, you're going to need third-party systems. You're going to need to vet those out, figure out what does the things you want it to do in the way that you want it to do it. Is that the experience that you want to have? We'll just get everybody's opinion right now. Just see what everybody thinks. Feel free. Drop your comments, drop your everything, right? Okay. Let's see. Yep. A lot of people talking about design by committee problems. Oh, we're going to get this guys, this gets so much. Well, it depends on if you like it or not, but it's going to get so much better. Okay. Yeah. All right. Nobody wants that experience, right? I certainly don't want that experience. And by the way, if you're going to say that that's the design of Gutenberg, well, you can't also tell me it's for everybody because it's just by default not for everybody. That was the point that I was trying to make. Okay, let's let this roll.
It says, but Kevin, just build custom blocks. This right here is me. This is like the first thing I thought of. And to be honest with you, after looking through all this and giving this a fair amount of thought and reading this a whole entire blog post like 4 times, I'm still stuck on this one point right here. He like already knows it's a thing. But Kevin, just build custom blocks. Okay, so let's read what he says here. He says, this will be the argument that many use. Yep. To which I say, then it's not for everyone, is it? Yes, it is. Just because you designed some layout and that forces you, in order to make it fully maintainable, that forces you to build a custom block to make that thing. How does that...
Someone said no audio, but I'm pretty sure there's audio. I haven't changed anything. Yeah. People are hearing it.
Not make it for everyone. I mean, just the fact that you can actually go build that block, if you know how to code, which it seems you do, because during your video, you write a bunch of CSS and you know web development. It doesn't cost you anything to write code. It doesn't cost you anything to write CSS or JavaScript. To create a block, it costs nothing. There's no red tape. There's no barrier to entry to create your own block and put it out there. It's a little annoying to get it like in the plugin repository because you got to pass the plugin inspection and all that, but that doesn't prevent you from like creating a GitHub repo and just telling people and saying, hey, you can now build this feature grid Victor thing that I designed, and you can go to GitHub and just download the block and use it. Like, nothing's preventing you from doing that. And instead of doing that, he basically decided, I'm going to spend more time than it takes to do that to basically try and build this entirely in Gutenberg without using custom blocks. And
so he wants you to believe that React is for everyone, and you should learn React to use Gutenberg, and we should build custom blocks. The idea that anybody would, and by the way, I'm not against custom blocks. I hope when I turn his audio up, I hope it doesn't throw mine out of whack. I don't think it does, but let me know. I'm not against custom blocks. There are things that I look at and go, should probably build a custom block for that. Is the layout that I proposed one of them? Fuck no. The idea that anybody would look at that simple, basic layout and be like, custom blocks, React, get your React out. We're going to bring in the heavy lifting. Okay. We're going to need custom blocks for that. That is a failure of the block editor. 100%. That's why I threw the softball at it. If it can't hit the little 20 mile an hour underhanded, please hit this. Please, like I do on my daughter's softball team. I'm like, for fuck's sake, please hit this thing, right? I was gonna get the easiest thing that I can give it, right? And it couldn't do it. And the answer is custom blocks to that softball. That's a problem. That's why I did that. That's a problem. It highlights the problem. And he keeps asking me throughout this video, why did you even bother with this? Why did you even keep going? Why didn't you stop? Why didn't you build because I wanted to make the point. It can't hit a softball, right? So I don't care what else it can do or should do or whatever else people want to, until it can hit a softball, it's failing as a project. Okay. And I think you all agree, like, we don't want to have to use React for that layout. And if it forces us to do that, I think we can all agree too that people coming from Wix, people coming from Squarespace, democratize WordPress, make it available for everyone, make the block editor for everyone. You can't tell people to open VS Code and start coding in React and also maintain those other arguments and that other vision. These concepts cannot live with each other. They are directly opposed to each other.
I don't know. Me personally, if you're trying to say you want to make things maintainable and reusable, building a custom block for it, to me, seems like the very best way to create something that is reusable and maintainable. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Like, just build a custom block. Now, if you're thinking, oh, well, I would have to do this for my clients or whatever. Well, but you didn't create this thing for your clients. You didn't. You created it initially, it looks like, for this frames thing you built that has a dependency on bricks. If it was so easy for you to make it and you're such a good developer, why don't you just make it for Gutenberg too and sell that as well? Nobody's stopping you from selling your block to anybody whether it's in Gutenberg or bricks. It really doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, it increases the value proposition of frames itself if it's compatible with both bricks and Gutenberg.
Thanks for the business advice, Rob. I don't. The other thing that does frustrate me, honestly, and you'll see this occur multiple times throughout the video, is they talk down to you. Like, they talk to you as if you don't know. Like, yeah, Rob, I've never fucking thought about that I could make a lot more money if I build something for Gutenberg. That never crossed my mind. It never crossed my mind, guys, that I'd make a lot more money if automatic CSS was for Elementor instead of bricks. Never crossed my mind. I'm just a little entrepreneurial moron, just wandering the streets over here trying to do my best. Like, yes, Rob, I understand that I could sell people blocks. That is a argument completely separate from the fact that the 2024 theme and the block editor can't hit a softball. Right? I'm trying to make a point. This point that you're making is completely irrelevant to that point. And you're talking down to me in the process, as if I haven't thought of these things. Like, I understand the basics, Rob. I understand so let's stay focused on the task at hand instead of like the underhanded insults, right? And the like, oh, he probably hasn't even thought of the obvious thing yet.
Now I guarantee you, way more people are using Gutenberg than are using bricks. So why wouldn't you build the block for Gutenberg? You're more likely to sell more of your frames thing that contains this if it's Gutenberg compatible.
Okay, he's basically just repeating himself over and over. Let's go to 1240. Very interesting statement right here, 1240. Let's get ahead right here, right around here somewhere.
You'll see that his biggest problem with this layout here are these 4 cards. He's trying to build this 4-column layout with these cards, and he struggles through the whole thing. The rest of this whole section is not that hard. Like,
Rob, the entire section is not that hard.
I could build the whole rest of the section in 5 minutes. We could have already had it done, to be honest.
We could have already had it done, to be honest. He said 5 minutes, and he said we already could have had it done. We're 13 minutes into his video. He could have already had it done. Do you know how often I hear this? Oh, I could have done that, and da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, I could have done that so easy. I could have done da-da-da-da-da. And then you never see it happen. They never show you. You never get to witness it. This is an hour and 14 minutes. I hate to break it to you if you didn't hear my intro. He never builds it. Ever. You would think an hour, 14 minutes. I mean, that's got to be built at some time. Instead, he tells us 13 minutes in, he could have already had it done. But in an hour, 14 minutes, he couldn't manage to do it. Why? Why is that disconnect a thing? What's so hard about literally just doing it? Wouldn't that have been the best way to make the point and the argument and drive it home? Like I do constantly on my videos. Hey, here's why this is better. Let me show you. Let me drive it home step by step by step. You can watch. I'll explain it to you. I'll teach it to you. Here it is. Instead, we have an hour and 14-minute rebuttal where he's like, oh, I could have done this easy. Yeah. Talking is cheap. Talking is easy. Why didn't you just do it? There's like a huge lapse in this video.
It's just these cards. He spends the whole time on these cards. And I'm not going to lie, it's a slick design. I like it. These are cool cards. That's why I'm going to make a block out of it.
They're not even that great, honestly. These are mid to me. Like, it was a concept that I saw that I was like, I like that. People probably want it. Okay, I'll build it. Like, it's not even that fantastic. It's just different. It's just fine. Whatever it is, not even that impressive. It was a softball. Again, it was a softball.
So, yeah, I don't know. Like, if you're having to do all this weird stuff and write all this custom CSS in...
If I'm having to do weird stuff, guys, like write CSS. No, you know what's not weird? Not weird is VS Code and React and custom blocks to build this layout. That's not weird. Custom CSS, very weird.
in the additional CSS area in the WordPress theme editor or whatever, or in the WordPress site editor, whatever you want to call it, and you don't like that CSS writing experience, why are you doing it?
I'm doing it because there's no other option other than React. I don't want to do React. I want to just build the simple layout with HTML. So the point of the video was to demonstrate that I have no other option here. I'm stuck. I'm stuck in this shitty CSS style sheet that's not even, this is like worse than Notepad. Why is that the experience was my question, okay? Not why am I trying to build this thing using HTML and CSS fundamentals. That was not the point of the video.
It should be obvious. Don't do it that way. Just don't. If you build a block, you can write Sass and CSS, and you can use your tabs and all this stuff, and it's all contained within the block itself, and it's completely reusable. The CSS is automatically minified. I'll show you all of that. Like, just you could have built the block. And
Still waiting.
all the time you spent writing this blog article, tweeting Matt Mullenweg.
He thinks like he was like you. Is he pretending that he doesn't know why I wrote the article and why I recorded the video to make the point? Like he's pretending that that I was trying to do this for a client and recorded myself. No, I made the video and the article to demonstrate the problems. And he's like, well, you could have just done this easier a different way. Like, Rob, then I wouldn't be able to show the problems, would I? There's like elementary stuff being missed here, and I just don't understand it.
Making this YouTube video, editing the YouTube video, you could have built the block. So, and I want to be able to respond to it. So this will be kind of like a reaction video.
Okay, right here he goes into, and this is very interesting. He starts debating with himself. Because I think he thought about building a block right now. Right now in this video, he thought about building a block for us. But then he starts debating with himself, which is very interesting.
But also, like, I'm going to show you how to build a block video, too. We could build this as a static block or as a dynamic block. There's really actually no need to create it as a dynamic block unless you're, like, super keen on doing it with PHP. To create it as a truly static block and make it like the best user experience and make it truly maintainable, you should create it as a static block. And I may take that approach. I don't know, just so that it's like as pristine as possible. His argument would be like, well, I could do this in 15 minutes in bricks. Yeah, you could, but it wouldn't end up being as clean and as reactive and as pretty and maintainable as what I'm going to build. So, like, I could do it in PHP and do it much faster. Whatever. Like, different strokes for different folks, I guess. I'll probably end up doing it as a static block just so that people can see a static. I've already done other videos on how to make dynamic blocks. So I don't want people to think like, oh, Rob only knows how to make dynamic blocks. Like, I can make static blocks. It just takes a little bit longer to make static blocks because you got to, like, use all the components and all this jazz. So whatever, a little bit of debugging and stuff like that. Again, I'll try to make this video as quick as possible, or it's going to be long. I'll try to prevent it from being super long. I'm going to edit out as much as I can, but yeah, I don't know.
He doesn't ever realize that, like, number one, he's debating with him. So, well, it could be a static block, it could be a dynamic block, but, you know, static block's going to take a little bit longer to build, and the dynamic block, I've already done a thing on that. I'd already be halfway done with the thing in bricks. I don't even need that. These are not even questions in bricks. You look at the layout and you go, that's HTML and CSS. Let me just build it real quick. It's not even, oh, I got to do this. And then, of course, maybe we do like a custom post type, which that's just standard. It's like, of course, that's going to be a custom post type. And we're just going to query loop it and be done with it. And the maintainability is going to be there by default because that's how we do things in our workflow. And then he goes out and he's like, oh, if I built it in a custom block, it'd be way more maintainable and way more. And I was like, I don't think so. You don't appear to even know how bricks works or what it's capable of. And so he's just talking, like, just to talk, I guess. But I just thought that was very interesting, where he's always saying, oh, this is so simple, so this, so that. But then he's literally having an internal debate with himself about what kind of custom block it should be. Should it be React? Should it be PHP? Should it be a combination of both? Should it be this? Should it be that? Like, it's like, man, that's a lot of thinking. That's a lot of consideration for this very simple layout. And remember, writing custom CSS at all would be weird here. This would be very weird, but having this debate about static blocks and dynamic blocks and React, and that's not weird. That's just, part of the process. But if I wanted to, it would already be done by now. Just trust, right? It's like, we're just talking in circles. All right, so let's see. He doesn't do the how to build a block, okay? Let's get on to the grid stuff. He actually starts to break down my workflow, my process here. And some very interesting little things come out of this. And it kind of starts to show you maybe some cracks in like how block editor people are thinking about this stuff. Editor does not have...
To be honest, that's not what I would consider to be a grid.
So this was the part of the video where I was talking about flexbox versus grid, and I explained why I don't want to use flexbox. I said there's 4 items in a row with a gap, but I know in my mind, see, the thing about being a developer that's like, good at what you do, when somebody hands you a layout, you don't just go, okay, I'll just build that. The fastest way I can get that done. You do think about scalability. You do think about maintainability. You do think about what other people might do with that layout. The fact that there are 4 cards in this layout matters to nobody at any time, because it might not always be 4. If we query loop this, it could be 16. It could be 12. It could be 2. It could be whatever. We don't know, right? You don't want to use flexbox in a situation where grid is far superior. If this goes to 8 items, well, grid is far superior to flexbox. And we know that that's not just a possibility, it's a likelihood. Very likely. This is anybody who's experienced looks at this and goes, that's a grid. That's not a flexbox situation. That is a grid situation. Now, what's going on inside of the cards, that's a flexbox situation. What's going on with the layout of the cards, 100% every day of the week, a grid situation. Rob thinks this is a flexbox situation. And this is another disconnect, right?
It's a 4-column card layout. I don't know. I wouldn't say that qualifies as a grid because it's only 1 row. You don't really need a grid here. If it was like more than 1 row, or you had like
if it was more than 1 row, why would we start with the inferior layout option and then go, well, I mean, if it has to be more than 4 at some point in the we'll just redo the whole thing. Like, no, wait, let's just build it right to start with would be the best option typically.
A true grid, like if you're building forgive the lack of a better word, table. If you're trying to build a whole table of stuff, then yeah, then now we're talking about a grid layout. But to me, this doesn't scream grid. This is just 4 cards in line of each other. I don't see where grid comes from here.
CSS grid controls. So okay, let's go to sections now. So that was a very interesting tidbit about flexbox versus grid. Again, I mean, this stuff is fundamentals, right? But there's still a disconnect. Even at the fundamentals level, there's a disconnect. We can change this to a section tag. That sounds good. And now what I want to...
Okay, so he just noticed that when you're going through this, you can take the group block and add the section element to the markup. Okay? With that said, though, when you go through, he says right here, there's no unique semantic elements. There's no section element. There's no section element, for example. So there's no way to define global styling for a specific semantic context, is what he says in this blog article. However, we just watched him figure out that he can turn a group block, or make a group block, a semantic section element. But he just breezes right past it. He just blows right over it like that didn't happen, because it goes against the point that he's trying to make.
Okay, let's pause there. Yes, Rob. I'm trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes. I want everybody to see that I didn't just do that, right? No, or there's an alternate reality where a section element is actually a thing. Okay, let's just demonstrate. Here's what I was looking for inside of Elementor. So I'm going to go to edit with bricks. I'm going to go to, look at that right there. That's a section element. This does not exist in Gutenberg. Look what happens when I add it to the page. It's actually a collection element. It's more than one element. It's an outer wrapper. It's got an inner container. That outer wrapper has a specific tag on it already by default that I don't even have to worry about. It's got everything that I need ready to go for me to start building out my section. This is not possible in Gutenberg. It takes 10 clicks to achieve this in Gutenberg. And if you have 10 sections on the page, that's 100 clicks. That's a lot of clicks. That's a lot of clicking. I don't have to do that much clicking. I just add it and it's done, right? This is what I'm talking about when I say there's no section element. Now, I said, this is how I respond, right? To people when they make arguments like this. I took the time, I sat down, and I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I didn't do a good enough job. I did a whole video on sections and how they work and how they're structured, but maybe that wasn't good enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to spend another 5 hours detailing what an actual section looks like. Okay, every website builder should have a proper semantic section element, but most don't. I built a whole custom visual of it. I did a whole nother write-up. I provided example code. I threw a code pen in there so people can play around with it if they want to. I talked about every builder that has it, every builder that somewhat has it, the builders that don't have it at all. I did a whole write-up on it because maybe I didn't do a good enough job the first time. So I'll just take another stab at it. I'll just throw more education and information out there into the world so that less people are confused. That's my approach, right? I will continue to make the argument. Rob is saying basically, he's trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes because it defeats his argument that does he think that if I realized that something there had defeated my argument, that I wouldn't just go back and edit the article? Would I leave the bad argument in the article? just hope that people miss the fact that I changed that to a section tag? Or is the reality that if you have to change it to a section tag manually, number one, most people won't. Number two, it still doesn't get you an accessible internal wrapper. It doesn't get you anything else that you need with a section element. But Bricks gives that to me. Also, what it doesn't give you is this ability right here. You go to theme styles. You go down here. You find the section element, section. Oh, look at that. Bricks has the foresight to be like, well, users need a section element, but not only that, they're going to need to apply default styling to the section element. Now, I have automatic CSS, which already does that for me because automatic CSS also has something called foresight for its users. But Bricks is phenomenal because Bricks shares that foresight, right? Bricks knows we need a section element. Bricks knows that section element needs an accessible internal container. And Bricks also knows that section element needs global styling control. Bricks knows all these things, making it very easy for us. What builder doesn't know these things? Well, actually, most of them, including, though, the block editor. And this is what I was looking for. Hey, if there's no section element, I got to do a lot of manual work to get to where I need to be. And I'm going to have to go write custom CSS to style that section element globally to have at least a semblance of a logical starting point for using that section. That was the argument that I was trying to make. And Rob thinks that argument is defeated by saying, well, you can change the semantic tag to section on the group block. But that doesn't meet any of the other requirements that I asked for, right? So that's not a rebuttal to there's no section element. And it's not like I didn't even know that. I obviously knew that because I did it, Rob. I changed it in the video, demonstrating this is what I have to do to get to where I want to go. But it's not easy. The whole point was it's not easy. It's also not for everyone because somebody coming from Wix doesn't even know that you need to do that. That was the point.
Kevin, what gives, man? You say there's no section element, no unique semantic elements. There's no section element. You just made one. We just watched you make a section element using the group block.
What I do is, okay, he's about to say something else right here at 2027. And this is one of those, remember I talked about underhanded insults. I talked about like the assumption that I just don't know what I'm doing by all these people. It says group block. Okay, I guess that's just choosing a layout for that. Let's go ahead and add a block. And we're going to add a group inside. It wants me to, again, choose a layout. I'm going to call this intro.
Okay, so he goes on to build the rest of the block. And then we're going to pause when he starts going through the cards and all that stuff, and I want to elaborate on that. The rest of it's pretty straightforward. He creates the heading. He creates the paragraph thing. He complains about how the alignment tools are difficult to find and how he can't figure out how to make it full width. He eventually figures out that there is a full width setting in the toolbar up here. Listen, I agree. It's kind of weird that some of the stuff is off to the right and some of the stuff is in the toolbars. I get it. I don't know, man. Everything's got a learning curve. If this is your first time using Gutenberg and you figured it out on your own, it can't be that hard. Okay, sorry, this was the underhanded insult comes later. This was the if you figured it out, it couldn't be that hard thing, right? And this is, again, it's like a just a lapse in, it's like, let's pretend the whole context of this discussion, it doesn't exist, doesn't matter. Remember I told you context is very, very important to this discussion. What is the context of him telling me, hey, if you figured it out, it can't be that hard? Rob, let's remember, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I made Page Building 101 to prove a point that if you understand the fundamentals of Page Building 101, you can pick up any tool, regardless of how dog shit it is, and still get to where you need to go for the most part. That was the whole point of Page Building 101. Stop learning the language of a page builder and learn the language of web design, and you will be empowered to get to the goal, to get to the finish line, regardless of how bad the tool is that you have to use, okay? And that was the point of this video. Let me show you how bad this is, but I'm still going to fight my way to a working solution. That was the whole point of the video. And Rob's response is, well, if you figured it out, then it couldn't be that hard. Which in itself is somewhat like of an underhanded insult, because it's like, if you're a moron, you figured it out. Anybody can do it. Or he's just completely abandoned the whole context of, we're supposedly talking about everybody here. Like the person coming from Wix. Well, if Kevin figured it out, they can figure it. No, that doesn't compute. I've been doing this for 20 years. They have not. They won't know how to do any of this stuff. And this is what I've said. Somebody sit me down. I actually took an Elementor ad, and it could be Wix, it could be Elementor, it could be anybody, Divi. They all do the same thing. This ad of a nice blonde model, right? We're holding a laptop with a website on it, and it was like, look, I did this, and anybody can do it. And that's the lie. That's the lie of all these builders, is that anybody can do it. And I called them out, and I put it on there, and I was like, if anybody can do it, get rid of the model, get rid of the pretty blonde model, and go get my mom. Where's my mom? Get my mom in here, sit her down in front of this builder, and turn on the video, and I want to watch. If this is for everybody, show me. If it's easy, because it said she did it in less than 10 minutes. If it's that easy, put it on film. You can't, because it's a fucking lie. It's marketing bullshit. No beginner coming from Wix is going to sit down in front of this block editor and know the slightest about how to get started. The slightest. It's not even, it'll take them an hour to figure out how to get one thing onto the page. I've watched beginners do shit before. Guys, I've been on videos with people who've been using bricks for a year, right? And they're new to web design. Okay, so I'm not calling them out or putting them down. They're new to web design, relatively new to web design, but they've been using bricks for a year. And I'll be coaching them because people pay for coaching to get better at doing this stuff, right? So they're paying me to watch them work and give them pointers and show them, okay, well, we could do this a little bit faster this way and that way and yada, yada, yada. It will take us an hour to build a basic hero section. And this is somebody that has experience. And again, I'm not calling them out. Why am I saying this? Because this shit is hard.
It's not easy. And you can't just snap your fingers and put a pretty blonde model on an ad and pretend that it is. Let's just pretend that anybody can do it. Let's just pretend that it's easy. And by the way, that's just one discipline. Like the actual development part, that's just one discipline. That's not even the design part. That's not even the copy part. That's not even the offer part. That's not even the anything part. Like that's like one little snippet of everything that has to be done to get to a working website. These ads are bullshit. It's all marketing. This idea of democratizing publishing that anybody can do. Yeah, anybody can do it after they spend hours of learning curve figuring out how to get it done. That is the truth. That is the reality. And the sooner you tell people the truth, the better off everybody's going to be. And we can stop building tools for the lowest common denominator who still, no matter how basic you make it, still won't know what the fuck to do when they open it on day one. They just will not know what to do. Plain and simple. And if you want me to prove it, I'll get my mom. I'll put her down in front of the computer. I'll pull up the 2024 theme and I'll say, get to work, mom. And let's just watch. And we'll be there for fucking 12 hours and nothing will be done yet. Guaranteed. That is the reality. That is the truth. Okay? I prefer to educate people with like, hey, let's just tell you the reality. When someone's like, hey, I want to get into what you do. I want to start an agency. I want to do this and that. How can I get started quick? You can't get started quick. You can't. You're going to have to grind. Okay? You're going to have to learn a bunch. That's the reality. Tell them that up front. Let them know. Okay, let's keep going here. Let me go to the next timestamp. Okay, 2148 is where we need to be. We're going to have a little interesting thing on the stack versus whatever else they call it, row. The inner, that's going to be a stack as well. Okay, so I'm going to click there, and then I think I have to click here to make a stack. All right, we're going to go in here.
No idea why he's making this a stack. He ends up undoing it. Why are you making this a stack?
And we are going to add our heading for our card. All right, that's good. So I made it a stack because the stack versus row in Gutenberg, from what I can tell, is basically the flex flow. It's like, do you want it to flow in a row or do you want it to flow in a column? And they've renamed them to stack instead of column for whatever reason. Again, because we're building for the lowest common denominator user. Okay, so he's like, why would you? I don't even know why you would do that. He admits in a moment that he didn't even know the stack versus row was a thing in Gutenberg. He literally says, I've never even used those controls. But he doesn't know why I did it. It's like, well, because that's the flex flow. But the reason I undid it is because when you change it to a stack, you lose controls in the side panel over here. So it's like, oh, maybe they don't want me to do that. I was confused. I was lost. Why? Because it's not a good experience. That was the whole point of the video. It's not a good experience. And he's like, I don't know why you'd be lost in this terrible editor that I don't even know those controls exist, but why are you lost? That's like it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's going to be an H3 heading. I'm going to go ahead and set that right now. So this is going to say card heading goes. The other thing that we have.
Okay, so he proceeds to try and build one of these cards with Gutenberg entirely. So he's throwing together groups and headers and all this stuff. And he's like, okay,
big straw man argument incoming here. Oh, this is, I think, one of the biggest. There's a couple just gigantic straw man arguments. I think this is one of them coming up here.
I'm going to build one of these and then I'm going to like duplicate it across a bit, essentially is what he's doing.
The other thing that we have with these lists is this is a list of features. So
again, I think the design of what he has here is actually pretty slick. I'm going to give you a little credit, Kevin. Kevin, this is cool.
This is actually very important right here. This is going to be one of just the most critical aspects of all of this. It has nothing to do with the block editor. It has nothing to do with this. Well, it has to do with this layout a little bit, but it has something very important to do with how my arguments are very often just like taken out of context and off into some different fairy tale land where things were said that I never said and yada, yada, yada. Well, just watch this.
Cool. Like the way that UX is and it's the way the image hovers in and all that. I think it's beautiful. So good job in your design.
Or whatever it happens to be, a list of services, if these are service cards. Right now, there's no context for what they actually are. But if it's a list of features or a list of services or a list of people, we really prefer it to be a semantic list, you know?
Okay, time out. Okay, so let's get into it, people. Okay, I really want to talk about this topic because I've had this conversation with a few people now, and this really gets under my skin. This is a huge topic that I wanted to cover in this video. We're talking about lists and semantic HTML, and accessibility is kind of what we're talking about, right? And so he's basically saying that he thinks all of these need to be in a list so that screen readers and people that leverage accessibility tools, basically so that you can not use a mouse and you can tab through the different elements in the section and interact with them. So like if they link to other stuff, like it all needs to be able to do that. And his belief is that this can only be done with lists. And
Wrong. Fake argument. 100%. Never anything I've ever said. He's conflating two hugely different things. Keyboard navigation, you could do keyboard navigation all day long without a semantic list. That is not why I propose a semantic list. I have never said, nor will I ever say, well, the only way to make a keyboard accessible is to put these things on a list. Didn't say that in the video, have never said that, never made that argument ever. This is a complete fairy tale fabrication. The reason it's in a list is so when somebody on a screen reader is going through and they're doing your services, right? So they're tab navigating through your services, it announces as a list. And it tells them how many items are in the list. It gives them additional information and context. If you have 12 services, it's going to say, and they know they're in the services section, right? Because you're using section tags properly and headings properly. They know they're in the services section. They're now tab navigating through your services. It's going to say list 12 items. It's going to let them know ahead of time. Hey, there's 12 services coming up. You're about to tab through them. Very helpful. Very helpful. This has nothing to do with their ability to use the keyboard to go through those items. Nothing, never said it did. This is a complete fabrication fairy tale. And he literally spends the next however long, 10 minutes, I think. He goes to ChatGPT to fact check me. He goes to, and by the way, I don't think he even knows like anything much about accessibility. You can tell from his initial attempt at explaining this, right? But this is just and this happens all the time. And people ask me why I get frustrated. This is why I get frustrated. Because he's countering an argument I never made. This is just complete fairy tale land.
And I think there's a lot of other people out there like this that think that the only way that you can do this semantically is by using either the UL element or the OL element. So an unordered.
Now, the reason we're talking about this, remember the context. The reason we're talking about this is because in the block editor, you cannot make that a list. That was the point that I was making in the video. I need to be able to make this a list, but I can't make it a list. And Rob's argument is you don't need to make it a list. And you don't need to make it a list because people can still keyboard navigate through it when it's not a list. That's never why I said I was making it a list, right? So that's the context.
List or an ordered list. Do you think that's the only way that we can semantically and accessibly?
Yeah, when I'm talking in the video, it's going to be like half as quiet because he didn't have the volume up in his recording. I've maxed out the volume on his video, so we're just not going to be able to hear me very well when he's playing, but most of this is him talking.
Create stuff. Now, let's be honest. If you break down any page,
This is fantastic. He's about to tell us what can be a list, right? Listen to this.
You can say all kinds of things are lists, right? Like look at these these recommendations down here. Is this a list of YouTube videos down here? Absolutely. What about these filters right here? Are these a list of filters? Sure, right? I don't know, like this is a list of stuff. Like everything is lists in the world. Like if you just start looking at all kinds of things, here's a list of different files in WordPress. This is a list of tabs that I have open in my browser. Sure, you can look at all kinds of repeated patterns in the world and try to label them as a list. But let's be 100% honest with ourselves. If we're really talking about semantic markup, okay? When we're talking about lists, a list is a bulleted list.
False.
Or lines or whatever. You're basically like a grocery list, a shopping list, an ingredients list for a recipe. That is the proper usage for the list element.
False.
Okay? Creating.
True. Yeah. If it's a grocery list, yeah, you use the list element. That's not the extent of it. He's trying to argue that that's the extent of it. Anything that doesn't look like a grocery list or a task list doesn't need to be a list.
A bunch of cards, like a 4-column card layout. Essentially, that's more or less that's more of a menu than it is a list. Okay, so I don't think that thinking about this.
By the way, a semantic navigation menu, it is, and I'm. Let me. I was gonna talk to Rob directly, but I understand that's a little bit like, talking down to somebody. But this is a huge disconnect because he's like, that's more of a menu. I can't say this without sounding like I'm talking down to him. Rob, every navigation menu uses list structure. It uses an unordered list structure. Like if you look up the proper semantic way to build a navigation, it uses lists, and they don't look like grocery lists. Every navigation that's built properly on the internet is a list, and it doesn't look like a grocery list. It doesn't even have bullets. It's inline. It's styled completely different. It has drop downs. It has flyouts. It has megas. It has lots of stuff. Doesn't look like a grocery list. He disproved his own point by even bringing up menus. Every menu disproves the fact that every list doesn't look like a grocery list.
As a list is semantic at all. Like, as a matter of fact, I believe it's the opposite of semantic, and actually, to confirm this, I was actually talking with ChatGPT earlier, and I wanted to see, hey, ChatGPT, what do you think about this? Okay, so I asked ChatGPT earlier. What did I ask? I said, in HTML, is there a generally acceptable and accessible approach to creating a set of interactive elements like buttons, cards, etc., that the user can tab through or interact with using?
Notice he's still on the tab through, interact with thing. That's a completely separate topic. It has nothing to do with the semantic use of lists.
The mouse or without a mouse, without putting those elements in a UL or OL element, with each one being its own LI element. And it says, yes, you can create a set of interactive elements like buttons or whatever, yada, 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 without using this. You can throw them in a div or section, and this is how to do it. Okay?
See, it's answering him based on that information that he gave it that's irrelevant to the discussion. Don't worry, I've got ChatGPT pulled up, and I will show you in just a second how, first of all, that ChatGPT is not even a resource for this. This is not even, you don't really prove these things by going to ChatGPT, and I'll show you why in just a second, but let's keep going.
And it says you can put roles on divs, and there's a tab index attribute.
Notice that he's saying you could put roles on things. We're going to get to the ARIA roles in just a minute, where we can make something a list, even though it's not technically a list. I just want to pause and let's bring back everybody to the context of, I was saying I need to make a list of cards in the block editor, and it is not possible because I can't set the HTML tag on a group to UL or to LI the way that I can in something like bricks. I'll show you right here. So if I have a block inside of here, we've all seen this happen over and over and over again. This container can be an unordered list. See how easy that was? This block can be a list item. That's all I wanted. It's not a big ask. That's a softball. Okay, that's all I was asking to do. And that's not so that these things can be clickable. That has or keyboard navigatable or focusable. Nothing. That's a side tangent. Okay. We're doing this for a specific reason that I've outlined in no less than like 5 hours of video, okay? I was saying this is not possible in the block editor. And he's saying, well, you can do this role thing. You can do ARIA labels. Guess what? Guess what, Rob? You can't do those either in the block editor. So if we have a situation where we need to create a list, however you want to create it, whether it's ULLI or it's ARIA role, you can't do it in the block editor. That was my point. It's not. So these alternatives that he's giving us are still not doable in the block editor. Period, point blank. So this doesn't even matter.
And you can do an on click on the div and everything, okay? And so then I asked it, well, why do so many people still consider the list element approach to be the only option? And it basically goes to say, well, they think it's semantic structure and it's accessibility, styling, and then it goes on to say
it goes on to give him all of the benefits of doing it as a list. And he's just ignoring it.
However, it's important to note that using lists is not the only valid approach. The key is to ensure
never said it's the only valid approach.
That the HTML structure is semantic.
It is, by the way, the only valid approach to making something a list, right? Even the ARIA role, right? It says specifically, if you can make it a list with UL and LI tags, that's preferable.
Meaningful in that it provides a good user experience. The W3C HTML specification defines elements like nav, menu, and button to be used in certain contexts, and it encourages the use of semantic elements to convey meaning.
These are fun facts. They have nothing to do with our discussion.
So then it says, in recent years, web development practices have evolved, and there's a greater emphasis on using semantic HTML5 elements appropriately. For example, a navigation menu could be wrapped in a nav element, and interactive elements can use button for better semantics.
Interactive elements, not links. We're talking about links. These cards were links to different places. A button element would be semantically wrong to use in that situation. This is all just like, we're off in fairy tale land talking about stuff that has nothing to do with the card layout that I was just building.
Better semantics. So nav.
That would not be better semantics for the layout that we are talking about. 100% would not be better. This would be wrong, in fact, semantics. He's acting like ChatGPT is somehow like correcting anything that I've said, when this is literally, we're just off in Rob's head, talking about things that I never said, never advocated for, never even mentioned.
Button. Okay? Ultimately, the choice is up to you, depends on design and yada, yada, yada. So I'm not knocking him for saying that, like, he would prefer to do this with lists. Okay, I guess if you want to do it that way, but I'm here to tell you that that's not the only. Modern semantic HTML practices have expanded beyond the strict requirement of using LI or OL elements to satisfy accessibility and semantic concerns, while lists remain valuable for certain types of content, such as ordered and unordered sequences.
Such as the exact context that we were using it in.
HTML5 introduced new semantic elements that provide...
And this is ChatGPT just giving, because he's asking a question that's like, ChatGPT is like, I don't even really know what to tell this guy. I'm just going to give him a bunch of fun facts about semantic tags in HTML that have nothing to do with anything that we're talking about. So anyway, let's continue. Let's go forward as quickly as we can. So I pulled up ChatGPT. I said, if I want screen readers to announce a series of clickable cards as a list, should I build these cards in a UL and LI structure? Yes. And by the way, again, I'm going to go back. This is not the be all end all. ChatGPT, I don't think is a good argument. I'm using it because that's what he tried to use. Okay. To supposedly say that I'm wrong. I'm just going to get ChatGPT to say that what I was doing was exactly right. That still doesn't mean it's 100% true. We'd have to go to different sources and different people and talk to a bunch of people. But if he's going to use ChatGPT, I'll use ChatGPT. So it says, yes, using that structure for a series of clickable cards is a good practice for accessibility, particularly for screen reader users. The structure provides several benefits. Okay, semantic HTML, screen reader friendly, improved navigation, custom styling. And then I go down and I say, is this the only way to get these cards announced as a list? And it says, well, it's not the only way, but you can use ARIA roles. You can have div elements where proper ARIA. This is basically the same thing. It says role equals list item. You could use JavaScript. Guys, do any of us want to use JavaScript to get this done when we could just make it a list? I don't think so. So that's not a good solution right there. Ensuring proper keyboard navigation. It says right here, regardless of the HTML structure, that you can make it keyboard navigatable, which was never up for debate. So that's irrelevant. Basically, it's saying the only other way to do this properly is to use ARIA role equals list. which I go back to my argument cannot be done in the block editor either. So my original argument of this cannot be made a list still stands. Still stands. Okay, then I go down. Now, because I'm fair, I tried to confuse ChatGPT. I tried to get it to say something. I tried to get it to tell me that I was wrong. I was like, so outside of role equals list, there's really no way to get these items to announce as a list, is there? And would you say that just using UL and LI elements is the best way? So first I tried to get it to confirm, okay? And it basically, said all the same things over again. And then I said, I think you're wrong though. Isn't it true that using UL and LI structures actually poor accessibility and semantic structure more often than not in the modern area of web design? Now, why did I say this? Because ChatGPT is often confusable. You can get it to contradict itself almost immediately in various situations. So I wanted to test it. Can I get it to contradict itself, or will it stand firm on what it just told me about UL-LI list structure? And in this case, it actually stood very strong. It did not default to contradicting itself. It said, no, basically, UL and LI is the best way to go. And then it said, here are some considerations against UL and LI. Design constraints. Well, we know that that's not the case. So this is wrong. This is just ChatGPT being wrong, which happens very, very often. Over semanticization. Okay, there's an argument that not every group of items needs to be marked up as a list. True. For example, a set of unrelated call to action buttons or a group of icons may not semantically constitute a list. Fact, fun fact, because we haven't tried to do that, but it's a fact nonetheless. Flexibility with ARIA, okay, changing web standards, a bunch of nonsense, basically. The decision to use ULLI should be based on that. Now it's trying to hedge its bets, more or less. So then I challenged it again, and I was like, hold on, you just told me that with CSS, there are no design constraints with lists. Now you're saying that list structure creates constraints. It sounds like you're confused. And then he goes, you're correct to point out the inconsistency in my responses. Let me clarify. And then it tries to clarify. And then I said, okay, so if I'm going to create a grid of service cards, it seems like it would constitute a list of services. So would using an unordered list structure here be appropriate, even though I'm not creating a boring bulleted list like a shopping list? I even asked it hey, Rob said it has to be a shopping list. It has to have bullet points. And it was like, yes, an unordered list structure for a grid of services cards can indeed be appropriate, even if the visual representation is far from a traditional boring bulleted list. The decision to use list elements in HTML is more about the semantic structure of the content than about its visual appearance. So I guess Rob didn't even ask the tool that he was using to disprove this whole situation if he was wrong, right? Because he told us, no, it's actually more about visual appearance, that if it doesn't look like a shopping list, it probably shouldn't be a list. And here's ChatGPT saying, no, it has nothing to do with how the list looks. It has to do with the semantic meaning of the items. Okay, so I just wanted to show, and again, I'm not saying ChatGPT is a great source, but if you're going to use ChatGPT, well, let's have some conversations with ChatGPT, okay? Let's do it, but let's have the right conversations. All right, let's go back to Rob's video here. I'm going to check in with chat in just a second. And this is going to start going a little bit faster now because we're getting into, we're getting past a lot of the most tedious stuff. And by the way, he's also going to show us some things in the block editor. So if you're ready for Rob to show us some stuff, get ready. Okay. So ChatGPT, we did that already. All right, 2940. Let's go 2940 and let's play this. They don't let you have a custom HTML element. I don't think there's any other way to do this other than custom code.
There is a custom HTML block in WordPress that maybe he's not aware of. We'll talk about that a little later too. But he's going into this group block and he's saying there's no custom, you can't put a custom HTML element in there. That's true. You can't make the group block be whatever kind of element you want, but it really wouldn't make sense for a group block to act as an ordered or unordered list.
Yeah, it would. It would 100%. I do it all the time. I do it every day. I do it 1,000,000 times a day. In Bricks. I just showed you how to do it, how easy it is. I've shown why you should do it in countless hours of training videos. This is just wrong. And then if I went to the actual card that is in the list and went to advanced, same thing. We can't really have an LI there either. So basically what I'm gathering is I have to just ditch that requirement. If that's a requirement.
You don't have to ditch that requirement.
Which I feel it is.
I do have to ditch that requirement.
I just have to abandon that because there's just...
You do not have to abandon that. It just means that you can't build that layout with just this. You have to create your own block.
Ah, there we have it. So once again, guys, if you need something to be a semantic list, just crack out VS Code, right? Just get some React going, right?
Path to arriving there with these native controls.
Yeah, you came to the right conclusion. With what's native
I know I did.
in Gutenberg today, you can't build that. Okay, so build it. My man, build it. I know you know how to do it. I know you know how to develop stuff. Your CSS looks strong. You spend half of this video writing a bunch of custom CSS. You know how to do that. Is it just that you don't know JavaScript? Do you not know React? What is it that you don't know? I'll help you learn it.
Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate the card then.
Oh, again, he's the point to him. And yes, Rob, I don't know React. Yeah, that's the point, Rob. Right? This is a for everyone editor, and it's not for me. It's not even people who are like, imagine being me, right? 20 years of experience, all the things that I do, and all the things that I've shown, and all the things that I've taught, and it still doesn't work for me. That's the point, Rob. Because someone coming from Wix, it's not even fucking close to working for them. It's not in any universe will it work for them if it doesn't work for me. That's the whole point.
And let's just duplicate it one more time. And let's go to the grid and, I prefer BIM methodology, block L.
So he fumbles around through the rest of this video. I don't even...
One image. CSS, I would really like an answer for maintainability without CSS classes, right? Without the fundamental...
Okay, I really want to listen to this part. If anybody in the comments for this video can elaborate on what the heck he's getting at with the maintainability stuff, please enlighten me.
Even though Matt has told me it's there, it's just not there. Until partially synced patterns arrives, then we have some semblance of maintainability. It's still not going to be perfect. I would really like an answer for maintainability without CSS classes, right? Without the fundamentals of web design.
I'm so confused. You want maintainability without CSS classes? Or you think it's impossible to do it without? You can add custom classes to blocks today. Any custom blocks. And when you create...
See, once again, I don't know if he's pretending to be confused or if he's actually confused. Does he think... And you're about to, I think, see one of those areas where he just starts talking down. But let's see.
When you turn those blocks into a reusable block or a block pattern or whatever, the classes stay on that block. So you can add custom classes to reusable blocks. I'm sorry, to synced or unsynced block patterns, and they stay on there. So every time you add that block pattern, it has those custom classes that you added to the block.
See, I don't know why he's telling me that you can add classes to elements in the block editor when he watched me do that. Instead of him thinking like, there's got to be something he means beyond the thing I watched him do in the video 100 times. He's got to be talking about something else. And this is where I go back to the idea, and my team basically confirmed this when we had a discussion about it. People like Rob have never used bricks. They've never used a page builder that allows you to add classes and style the classes. I've never understood why they never understand what I'm talking about. They always look at me like I'm an alien. And I'm like, this is what I mean. The ability to go class, like add a class, and then I can style that class. That's what I'm talking about. That's not possible in Gutenberg. So, but he watches me add a bunch of classes to things and then write a bunch of custom CSS for those classes. And then when I say I can't add classes to things, he's like, oh, I just watched you do it. I watched you do it. You can do it. But Rob, it's not like this. And so I even tried to clarify. I said stylable classes, but then they get confused at that too. They're like, no, those classes can be styled. What do you mean classes can't be styled? You just write some CSS. And I'm like, but you can't write CSS because there's nowhere to write it. I don't know how to say this like politely. Guys, I'm 10 steps ahead of all of them, right? I've already thought through all this shit. I've already gone to every roadblock and go, no, that's a roadblock. No, that's a roadblock. No, that's a roadblock. Found a way around it. They act like when I bring up a problem, it's because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. No, I know what I'm doing. I found everything they say. They don't even know that their answers to something have 10 more roadblocks beyond it that they haven't even thought about yet. Well, I've already thought of those. I've already experienced them. I live in this environment, right? That's the disconnect goes back to, I don't think they've been on our side of the fence ever. They live in their own land, which is VS Code and React and all that. They don't live in the land that you and I live in. So they have no idea what Bricks is capable of, no idea how it works, no idea what the workflow looks like, none of this. They don't know any of that. And instead of them being like curious about it, like, wow, it seems like you guys have a really powerful workflow thing going on over here. Let me look into that. Maybe we can take some of those ideas and put them in Blockland. They don't say that to themselves. You know what they say? Those people don't know what the fuck they're doing. That's kind of like their attitude. Oh, those people don't know. Oh, you can just change the tag to a section and you're good to go. Nope, you're not. You're not good to go. You're way away from where you need to go still. Even when you do, they don't even know because they haven't thought to step 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yet. I've already thought through all those steps. Okay, that's why I've come to the conclusions that I've come to.
Doesn't take any custom anything. It's just in the editor.
It's a fundamental part of web design. All right, but we're going to continue on. So I've got my hover card. I've got my inner. Now, this needs to be position relative, okay? So I can't even see what that does. So let's refresh. Okay, I don't want that. He's fast forwarding, not me. So just hang with it for a second. Was pretty sure I didn't want that.
So
but
look,
I just wanted...
here we are at the 17-minute mark. Okay, we're at the 17-minute mark for this video. And this video goes for another 45 minutes, roughly. The rest of the time, he's messing with these cards. He spends 45 minutes trying to build this out in core Gutenberg existing blocks. And knowing that it doesn't satisfy his requirements and knowing that it's not going to be exactly what he wants in the end. Why wouldn't you stop right there? Why wouldn't you stop and just say, boom, this is where I stop working in just with whatever it gives me. And this is where I go make my own thing. I go make a custom block and then it ends up being exactly what I want in the end. And then I can do.
Yeah. So Halal said it right here. 45 minutes. That's the point, right? And why wouldn't I stop working? Great question, Rob. I don't know why you're still confused, right? I obviously didn't stop working because I was trying to prove a point. But here's the other side of the argument. If I was doing this for a client, I would have stopped working. I would have said, I'm not going to use this canvas. I'm not going to use this environment. I'm not going to use this builder. I'm going to use a more capable, more efficient tool. That is the conclusion that I would have come to. That is the conclusion I don't think you want me to come to. I don't think Matt Mullenweg wants me to come to that conclusion, Rob. But since you brought it up, that's exactly the conclusion I would have come to if I was doing this for a client. The reason that I didn't give up, the reason I slogged through this for the next 45 minutes is to prove the point that it is not a capable builder. It is not a capable environment at even getting softball layouts onto the page.
Whatever I want with that block. I can keep it for myself privately. I can put it on GitHub and contribute it to the rest of society or humanity, rather. I could put it in. Okay,
he gets back into like, why don't you build blocks and sell them and yada, yada, yada. I'm going to go to, this is called Kevin's misinformation segment. Okay, so we're going to go to 3850. This is Kevin's misinformation. Here we go. It's another big section of this.
Here's where we're going to go from here. We're going to go over some of these other bullets that are in his blog post, and I'm going to talk about why some of this is wrong, and it's basically like misinformation. And then we're going to go into how he, like a little trick that he did in here, where he essentially takes the anchor tag and makes it like as big as the picture so that you
He's talking about clickable parent.
can like tab and it like,
I know a few of you have asked for the link to the video. Don't worry, I'm going to post the link down below in the description. As soon as this WDD Live is over, I will put the link in the description. You will find it. Actually, I'll pin it in the first comment. So I'll put a comment with the link and I'll pin it, and it'll be easy for you to find.
I don't know, it affects the whole, he basically wants it so that when you click on the whole background image, it also takes you to the link, but he, for whatever reason, doesn't want to wrap the whole image in an anchor tag. In the video, he says that wrapping the whole picture in an anchor tag,
Not the whole picture, the whole card.
is not best practice.
It's not.
I got news for you. I asked ChatGPT about that too. It's not a bad practice to wrap your whole button or your whole
We're not talking about a button.
image or whatever
Not talking about an image.
in an anchor tag and link it. It's not. Sorry, it's not a bad practice. In your video, you say it's bad practice. It's 100% not bad practice. Your way of doing it works. The other way of doing it works. They both work. They're both good practice.
Wrong. I've demonstrated it. I've demonstrated how the links are announced when you wrap everything with a link. I've literally have video demonstrating it. Is there any video rebuttal here? Is there Rob saying, no, look, I built a card. I wrapped the whole thing in a link. Look how it announces. It's perfectly fine. And did he magically get it to announce as a list without using any list tags? Nope. No demonstration. Just take my word for it. That's all these arguments are, is take my word for it. No demonstration. No. Meanwhile, I'm demonstrating everything on video, hundreds of hours of demonstration. And they think that they can defeat it with just take my word for it type arguments. That's super frustrating. Super frustrating for somebody to dedicate hundreds of hours of let me show you why I believe what I believe. And then they just come along, they're like, nah, that's wrong. That's wrong. Just take my word for it. That's wrong. That's not the good way to do it. Super frustrating.
I mean, there's no bad practice in either approach.
But there is. People on a screen reader don't want to have to read out the heading, the paragraph, the button text, the everything else that's in there when you wrap the whole thing. They don't want to hear that.
So let's break down some of the stuff that's in here. Okay, so issues I knew I'd run into. The first one, no stylable classes. The Gutenberg project doesn't seem to believe that.
Here's the talk down. He's about to educate me right now because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So Rob's going to educate me on this class situation.
One of the most fundamental tools in web design, classes, are important. Bro.
Everybody knows the context of that statement that I made. Everybody with a brain and a little bit, like you got two brain cells to rub together and you're not purposefully taking everything out of context, you know exactly what I mean. That in Gutenberg, you cannot put a class on something like this and style it. Everybody knows that that's what the context is.
Oh. What are you talking about, man? Please tell me what on earth you're talking about. If we inspect any core WordPress theme, you're going to find a slew of classes being used in here, and every block inherently, whether it's a custom block or a core block, it inherently gets its own custom class. Look, you can see right here, WP block image. There you go. There's a class, and guess what? The next time you put an image in, it also has that same class. They all have the same class. So how, and that's just the image. We could do that for anything. WP block group. Like there's classes everywhere in this. There's a ton of them. Align full. The body has its own custom class. You could tell if it's the home page based on the class. You could tell if it's a blog page based on the class. Like there's a whole essentially WordPress has its own custom CSS library built into it by default these days. It's just there. Every block has its own unique class, and it's the same class across every time you use the block.
Does he think I don't know this? Does he? Once again, it's not. There's a disconnect in his head. And instead of him going, why is that disconnect there? Why? I know this guy knows that there's classes, that Gutenberg uses classes on these elements. I know he knows that. So what is he talking about when he makes this statement? What could it possibly be? What is the difference that he's not getting? That's what he could be thinking. Instead, he jumps right to, you don't know there's classes? Look at the class right here. Oh, there's a class on this. There's classes everywhere. I'm not a moron, Rob. You watched me inspect the page. You watched me write custom CSS on classes that I attach to the elements. You're not talking to a moron. So stop acting like you are. You're talking to somebody who knows, who inspected the page and looked at a bunch of classes. So ask yourself, what could I possibly be talking about when I make a statement like that? Have you watched any of my videos? And you claimed you did. And so if you have watched any of them, you've seen me use classes and style those classes, and you've seen how the bricks workflow works. Why are we acting like this is so unfortunate? It's so unfortunate. And it happens every time someone tries to debate me. It's so unfortunate. Stop pretending I'm an idiot and think to step 4, 5, 6, and 7 that I've already thought to, that you actually haven't thought to yet. Let me show you right here. WP block group. Rob, that's on every group block. Now, what does that matter to you? What are you going to do with that class? Can you do anything relevant? What does that class have to do with our card situation? That I want global styling control over all of these cards. Does that class identify the card that I'm working on? Does that class identify one group from another group in a different context? Does that class differentiate anything relevant? Think to the next step and the next step and the next step. No, these are irrelevant to the discussion. This is all, let's just pretend Kevin's a moron and let's just talk about a bunch of irrelevant factoids, right? I call them fun facts. Let's just say things that are facts but don't actually matter to the context of the discussion. It's annoying. It's a waste of time. It's every video. Every video.
So please explain to us, Kevin, what on earth your very first bullet point here is referring to.
I've explained it in hundreds of hours of videos. I don't know what else to do.
The Gutenberg project doesn't seem to believe that one of the most fundamental tools in web design, classes, are important. What? Anyway. There's no unique semantic elements. There's no section element. We already talked about this one. Poor HTML flexibility. Groups can't be converted into unordered lists or list items, for example. This makes building with semantic HTML next to impossible. Next to impossible? Really? Because you can't...
Sorry, it's not next to impossible, Rob. It's literally impossible.
Make a group into a...
Just add a little edit there to the article. It's literally impossible.
List that makes semantic HTML impossible? Again, what on earth are you talking about? Let's go in here and put a group in here.
Let's do it, Rob.
We're going to put a group. Here we are with
Watch
our group.
this.
I'm just
This is
going to make
hilarious.
a single whatever column thing that means.
Yeah,
And
here you are.
I'm going to go to group block selected.
Yeah, let's go there.
We go down to HTML
Yeah,
element.
let's go there too.
And we can turn
Not
this
find a fucking list tag, Rob. That's what we cannot find there. Thank
Group.
you. Where I don't understand. Somebody make it make sense.
into a bunch of different elements.
We can make them into a bunch of different elements as long as it's not a list or anything else relevant beyond this simple selection of items.
Okay, so why can't we turn this into an
Into a list. Great question, Rob.
ordered or unordered list, Kevin?
Here he goes. He's going to repeat the same fallacy that he repeated earlier.
Well, maybe that's because there's a whole other block just for lists.
Oh, back to our grocery list.
And guess what? It assumes you're using lists for what lists are supposed to be for.
So you guys want to know why I'm like have an aggressive attitude, right? This is aggressive as fuck right here. This is aggressive as fuck what he's doing with this thing right here. And he's wrong at the same time. And he's wrong at the same time. So yeah, I have trouble like, okay, let's respond like a little college professor. And no, I can't do it. I can't do it.
That's what lists are for. And we can also change what type of a list it is.
Oh, now he's going to give us fun facts about how you can make an ordered list if you want it to be ordered. Look how easy it is. Okay, let's go on to, let's see, 38, 50, 43, 49. Okay, is there anything else in here?
You can change it.
Let's go quick.
This is, when is Flexbox inferior?
Okay, here we go. Oh, this one, man. See, these are the ones that get me riled up, dude. This, just wait for this one.
Then show your set of features. It's called a feature set.
Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry, we just missed another one. Hold on.
I don't care what you say. I don't care. You think this is a list of features? Bro, that's not a list of features. This is a set of cards, and those cards represent your features. Is it a set of features? Absolutely. It's certainly a set of features. If you want a list of features, then you're representing them incorrectly by using cards.
We already disproved that earlier.
If you just want to show a set of features in cards, then show your set of features. It's called a feature set.
That's made up. That he just made up that word. Go into the documentation. Find me that in the documentation.
It's not called a feature list. I digress. Let's keep going.
I'm glad you digress. Let's move on.
Okay. No CSS grid. You're forced to use
This one's great right here. This one's great.
inferior. You're forced to use inferior flexbox controls for all layouts unless you do what I did and write custom CSS. First of all, since when is flexbox inferior?
We're going to get our dose of education because we're morons. Ready? He's going to educate us because we don't know what the hell we're talking about.
To grid. I don't know where this mentality comes from. I don't know who invented this mentality or how this mind virus got spread, but Flexbox and CSS are not, or Flexbox and Grid are not in competition with each other. They're just not.
They are if you use them wrong. There's a lot of people who want them to be in competition with each other, saying that, hey, like he said earlier, I see 4 cards in a line. Let's just use Flexbox. Nope, that's an improper use of Flexbox. Let's not do that. I never said, see, the thing about this sentence, and it's all about context, and it's all about this, like, just let's willfully take everything somebody says out of context. I feel like that's their entire goal. It's just, let's just take everything out of context that we can possibly take out of context. I'm talking about the layout and layouts like the one that I was using in the example, that we're forced to use Flexbox when Grid is superior in that context. I'm not literally saying that Grid is always better than Flexbox. And I can prove that that's not what I've ever said because I literally did a whole fucking video on Flex versus Grid. I did a whole video on Flexbox. I did a whole video on Grid. I showed the pros and cons. I should use it in this situation and not this situation. They act like none of this exists. They just act like none of this exists. This guy's a moron. He thinks that Grid is always better than Flexbox. That's clearly wrong. Let me show him how wrong he is. But it's only because they ignore all context, ignore all other content that I've ever created. And it's just super frustrating. Like, what are we even talking about?
Flexbox and Grid are 2 totally different tools to be used in 2 totally different purposes.
Yeah, you know what? You don't use them for putting 4 cards in a line when you have Grid available.
If you don't trust me in saying, let's do it again. Let's go ask ChatGPT. Hey, Chad.
He goes and has a conversation. You can go watch his conversation with ChatGPT. It's another it's another awesome interaction where it confirms basically everything that I said. Okay, let's keep going to this one.
A different people prefer flexbox. All times has been a go up. Your screen. And
okay, he talks about this list view nonsense. That's nothing that there is like important. Okay, let's go to 4939, issue that surprises me. 4939. We're getting down to the end. We're almost done.
Custom CSS
We're going to wrap this
is
up.
only available in the site editor, and the experience is atrocious. I don't understand how the custom CSS experience being atrocious is a surprise to you. It was atrocious before, and it's still atrocious. And guess what? The fact that you're trying to write custom CSS in the editor, that whole concept is atrocious altogether. I mean, you don't get any, okay, you get some linting in there, but let's be real. It's like minimal level linting that's happening in that CSS editor. But if you use an actual editor to write your CSS, you'd get better linting. You'd be able to use tabs. You'd be able to use style lint would automatically fix all your linting problems for you. So if you're quickly writing a bunch of CSS super sloppy, you can right click, do the style lint on the file, and it'll go through and fix your whole file for you. You'd be able to minify your file, your CSS. You'd be able to transpile all your CSS. You can't do any of that in WordPress, and you'd be able to version control your CSS. You can't do any of that.
Great ideas, Rob. Why aren't you fighting for some of this to be included in a professional tool? That would be nice, wouldn't it?
In core WordPress. So don't try to write custom CSS in WordPress, bro.
How do we come to that conclusion? How do we you cannot get there from where we just came from?
That's a bad practice.
That's bad practice, guys. Writing custom CSS for your sites is bad practice in WordPress.
No element-based custom CSS. All custom CSS has to be global, it seems. You can't attach CSS to specific elements on specific pages, and certainly can't attach custom CSS to classes placed on elements. This is a tremendous limitation. Okay, let's break this down because you're saying like 3 different things here, and some of them are accurate and some of them are far from accurate, okay? So, the fact that you can't put custom CSS on any given element, okay, I'll give you that one. You're definitely right about that. I do kind of wish that was there. However, a lot of people are glad it's not there because people like me do not want to encourage people to write custom CSS into the database because that's a bad practice. So why should we encourage bad practices? We should not. With that said, there are plugins that provide this functionality for you. There is a plugin that lets you write custom CSS on a block-by-block basis and store it in the database. You can install that plugin and use it if that is your desire. However, there is another option besides using the additional CSS.
Again, the context of all of this, because again, I'm thinking 10 steps ahead, okay? I want to be able to create shareable patterns the way that I've done with frames. I want to be able to package up a pattern and give it to somebody, and they can install that pattern and it doesn't break. It works exactly on their installation as it works on my installation. So guess what? When you give me a solution like, well, it's just a third party, you're a third party plugin away from being able to write that custom CSS on an element. Sorry, that's a breaking, that's not a solution. That breaks the chain of what I'm trying to accomplish. Because now it requires the other person to have that plugin also. He's gonna make a lot of these arguments where it's like, oh, just do this. And he doesn't even realize it creates 10 more roadblocks that he hasn't even thought of. That's why I say I'm 10 steps ahead. We're talking about surface level nonsense. I've already gone all the way down that rabbit hole and came back up for air going, that's a dead end. And then we go down another rabbit hole, come back up for air. That one's a dead end. I've already done all that work. It's people like Rob who haven't done any of that work. They haven't encountered these roads. They think that they're little, like the first solution that pops into their head, because I'm a moron, that never popped into my head, right? But the first thing that pops into their head, that's gotta be the solution to all these woes, right? Because it popped into their head, right? But it didn't pop into mine. Like I never would have considered that. I never would have considered adding a plugin to put some custom CSS in a video where I was testing native controls and not third-party tools, right? Never would have considered that.
in the full site editor that you did not explore. And I want to point that out right now. So if we click plus here and we look,
He's going to show us how to attach CSS to a custom pattern. Okay, here we go.
for custom HTML, in case you weren't aware, the style tag is a custom HTML element. Now, let me rephrase what.
And this is again, let's talk down to Kevin. He probably doesn't know that there's a custom HTML box. He probably doesn't know that you can write inline CSS. And then that block can be exported with your thing. Rob, to everybody listening, I already know there's a custom HTML box. I already know what inline CSS is. I've already determined, as you are about to admit in your own analysis, that this is a terrible fucking way to do it. And that's why I said, I'm not going to do it that way.
What I said earlier. Okay, or reiterate rather. Writing CSS in the WordPress editor is a bad idea.
We agree.
100%. It's totally a bad idea.
It's a bad idea
you should
right here.
not do this.
I agree.
However, in some situations, we are forced to do little hacky workarounds, or maybe they're like,
No, we're not. No. In this situation, because this is a bad editor, we are forced to do it. Let's go back to my initial argument. You use an inferior editing environment, you are forced to do bad things. That's the point of the entire video.
the return on investment to like go and
But he imagines that there is no better way that this is done. There couldn't possibly be a better way. Like the fact that I can literally go in here and go my class and come down to style CSS and have a dynamic root selector that references my class name. And I could even break off of this. I can branch off to like element BIM modifiers for child elements. And then I can save this and then I can export it to somebody else's site and they can import it and use it with all the custom CSS and it's still editable and it's still maintainable. And then when Bricks releases component functionality, it's going to go from B level maintainability to A+ level maintainability. This blows anything Gutenberg is doing out of the water. What he's saying is, oh, well, we have to have these terrible work. It's a bad editor. When you have a good editor, you don't have to do bad things. In fact, you get to do really, really cool things, right? This is a reimagined page building workflow that he has no idea about because he hasn't taken 10 seconds to do any semblance of homework before recording a 1 hour and 15-minute video pretending like I'm a moron and I don't know what I'm talking about. This is highly frustrating. Highly frustrating. It's not hard to do a little bit of homework. And like when people, and that's why I want to build the bridge, okay? And I'm having trouble because it's Rob's attitude gets me fired up, right? No reason for you to have an attitude when you clearly don't know what you're talking about. There's no reason for you like make a video like, I'm not sure why Kevin says to do it this way. I'm a little confused. Like I just in my workflow, this is how I see. I've been in both worlds already. I know the world they're thinking about. And I know most people don't want to do that. And I also know that Matt Mullenweg doesn't want people to have to do that. He wants people to be able to come from Wix and enjoy their life. He wants people to come from Squarespace and enjoy their life. I'm on Team Matt. I want him to do that too. So don't tell me we have to write React, create custom blocks, and do all this other jumping through hoops and dances and clown shit to be able to get simple little layouts done, right? When we have environments like Bricks, like Oxygen, like Breakdance, like I'll be on all Team Page Builder right now, like Elementor, like Divi, okay? Who have shown clearly way better workflows than what we're being given with the block editor. This is it's all right. Let's just keep going. I don't want to say anything about about Rob.
and like write our own CSS file and put it into the theme or edit the theme or whatever. Maybe for whatever reason you're restricted and you don't have access to the file system itself. For instance, if you're, I don't know, say creating a WordCamp site and you can't upload FTP anything to the site and there's no way to customize the theme or whatever. In those situations, here, this here, and then it's going to encourage specific pattern I made. While I can save the pattern I built to the pattern library, the fact that it required custom CSS in a separate style sheet makes it unshareable. This defeats the purpose of the pattern library. I build custom layouts and
I actually really love the idea, the concept of the pattern library in Gutenberg. I love it. I love it. The problem is I can't build anything for it because of what I just showed. The native controls don't give me what I need. I can't write custom CSS and attach that to the pattern so other people can use it without it breaking. I have to have third-party add-ons. I have to. All these I have to do's that I shouldn't have to do makes it a problem. That's why I don't want it to be a problem. I want to use the block editor. I want to use the pattern library. I love that partially synced patterns are coming. I don't like all these other fundamentals being missed and overlooked and ignored. That's what I don't like. And so I create a simple video to demonstrate that, a very fair video, basically an unedited video. And I was calm the entire time that I did it. And I just said, this is not an experience for me. And it's billed as an experience for everyone. It's not for me. It's not for people like me. It doesn't do what we need it to do. And again, the Robs of the world, they come at me like I attacked their firstborn child. And instead of just being like, damn, he's kind of right. It does need to be a lot better than it is. It does have a lot of limitations. There should not be this disconnect.
bricks, add them to Brick's pattern library, and push them out to thousands of users without issue every single week. This is not currently possible in Gutenberg. Again, I'll just say, doing it this way would allow you to do that.
Awful.
However, again, I'm also not going to encourage that
Exactly.
at all.
Exactly.
I don't think that's a good idea in the slightest. It says, while I can save the pattern I built to the pattern library, the fact that it required custom CSS in a separate style sheet makes it unshareable. That doesn't make it unshareable. It doesn't. You know what it means? It means you're doing it wrong. Here's why it means you're doing it wrong. This is why block patterns are a common part of themes now. This is why all the full site editing themes come with their own block patterns, because these styles should be part of your theme. Why should they be part of the theme? The reason they are part of the theme is because they help change the look and feel of your website, which is exactly what WordPress themes are.
This breaks the whole concept of the pattern library, a shareable public pattern library. WordPress has one. We can't create shareable patterns if we're all required to use the same theme, because that's not how WordPress works. Again, 5 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead, however many steps you want to count. He's not there. They're not there yet. They're just not thinking down the road. They're not thinking what this could be. We've seen like what Bricks did with their pattern library, right? Is tremendous. The remote template library concept. The ability to share these patterns across multiple sites, like flawlessly. And all the custom CSS is right there, comes with a dynamic root selector, all the controls that we need, all the functionality that we need, query loop compatibility that could query not just posts, but users, taxonomies. I brought that up the other day in the Gutenberg world. They looked at me again like I'm an alien. Why would you ever want to query taxonomies? Why would you ever want to query users? They look at me like I'm an alien. Interactions, conditions. The Gutenberg editor, it's 5+ years in development. It doesn't even have the bare minimum. And they think that that's not a problem. These problems are solved with React. These problems are solved with custom blocks. These problems are solved with third-party yada, yada, yadas, and theme styles and JSON files. And oh my gosh, guys, every time you say JSON, every time you say React, every time you say custom block, and by the way, I'm fine if that's the answer. If you want to tell me you learn React, build custom blocks, edit theme.json, you want to tell me all that, I will accept that as an answer. And I will go down that path gladly. But don't also tell me at the same time that this is for everyone, because that shit ain't for everyone. Don't gaslight me. Don't tell me you're democratizing publishing and then tell me React, custom blocks, theme.json, custom themes. Don't do that. You're gaslighting me and everybody else. Don't do that. If you're going to build this for everyone, Bricks is way more for everyone than Gutenberg could ever hope to be. And Bricks is not for everyone. And I've never tried to say that Bricks is for everyone. But on the scale of for everyone and for not a lot of people, Bricks is way fucking closer to for everyone than Gutenberg is. Fact. So the fact that they spent 5+ years building a for everyone environment that's still way, way far away from being for everyone is the problem. That nobody, and again, is this even debatable? They look at me like I'm an alien. They come at me like I've attacked their firstborn child. I'm just tired of being gaslit. That's it. And yeah, it's frustrating to be gaslit for 5+ years. For you to say, this is for everyone. It's going to be so easy. It's going to be so great. It's for everyone. And we're 5 years down the line, and I can't build a softball layout without React, custom blocks, GitHub repositories. The list goes on. You're failing the mission, which I can get on board with. Like, I would build Bricks and then find ways to scale it down to make it easier for newbies and whatever. Okay? But don't build to the lowest common denominator user 5+ years of development of an interface that doesn't have anything near what we need, and then tell me it's fantastic, and that beginners love it, and that if you want to do anything beyond like pushing a pixel around the screen, which you can barely do, that you need React and custom block. I mean, come on. This is absolute gaslighting. And then they want you to not get frustrated. And they want you to just be all cheery all the time and like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, WordPress is the greatest. Like, everybody, we don't have to sing Kumbaya around the fire. Like, you're gaslighting me. So it needs to be called out.
Most of the controls are intuitive.
Unintuitive.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you read it wrong. Okay, let's keep going.
Most of the Gutenberg editor UX, I'm not going to argue with that. You're right. They're still there. They're still tweaking some things or working on things. Things are constantly changing as we push out more updates. Again,
we're 5+ years down the road, and when I have a block spacing dial set to 0, the block spacing is not 0. And when I touch it, I don't even move it a notch. It becomes 0 without moving. This is a multi-billion-dollar company behind this tool. And we're being told that's just things that happen. They don't happen in Bricks. And Bricks is a year and a half under its belt. And like one guy. And like no money. Like, so stop it. Stop it. This is gaslighting. Stop it. Stop telling me that this is normal. This is not normal.
People are contributing their own time to this out of their own free will and not getting paid for it. A lot of people are.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward so we can be done with this. You can go watch the whole thing. I'm going to go to 110. 110, 110, 110, 110, 110. Just prove one last point. I'm just going to prove one last point. I'm going to go with Rob and just say, okay, Rob, we'll use a third-party library. Let's just do it. Okay, here we go.
Like, there's free block libraries out there. Getwid, Spectra. Like, I'm not going to list them all off. There's blog articles out there. Google a top 10 free.
Once again, remember, this whole argument is made within the context of Kevin's a moron. He couldn't possibly have thought about this as a solution. Okay, let's just keep going.
like Gutenberg block library, and you'll find a bunch of them. I'll bet you half of them have what you're looking for. As a matter of fact, I was curious and I looked up GetWid, and I looked up all of the blocks that come in GetWid. Look at what they have here. Look at this. It's a card that allows you to tab through and select things and click the enter button and go to a page. It exists in GetWid. It's free. You just go to plugins, add new, look up GetWid, install and activate the plugin, and now the block is available in your block editor.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. All right, so I've already done that. Here is the GetWid block right here. I'm going to open here. This is what he says is my solution, okay? Now keep in mind, it's not, here's your layout. Let's put aside the fact that you couldn't just build it, okay? If you want something like that, it's either custom block or go find a third-party block library that has that thing in it. And then what? At the end of the day, Rob, I'm going to have 19 different block libraries installed because all these different things that I needed when I should have just been able to build it by myself. But still, let's analyze for a minute because once again, it's just the first thing that pops into their head. Kevin's a moron. He probably hasn't thought about that yet. Let me educate him on this solution that he should use, which is the third-party block library called GetWid. Granted, hadn't even used GetWid, but I already know a philosophy, which is I don't want 18 block libraries for every type of block that I need, number one. Two, all the block libraries that I've seen have tremendous limitations, so I don't really want to be living in that world. I would rather build it myself with no limitations. The way I can build it in bricks. I'm not talking about a fantasy land. I'm talking about the workflow that I use every day of my life in this other environment over here, okay? And so I went and I found the GetWid block that he's talking about. It's called the banner block. And it does appear, if I go to the front end, okay, it does appear, here we are right here, that it's mostly there. It's not all the way there because you can't make the image disappear, like it can't do this, right? Okay, there's no option for that. You are very limited, but that's not even the worst part of this suggestion that Rob has. Because once again, this failure to think a few steps ahead, I've already done the work of thinking ahead. I've already outlined this problem in bricks. I've outlined this problem in Elementor, in Breakdance, in Divi, in all of them. Look at this. Let's say I use this GetWid card, Rob's solution, 1,000 times. And then I need to add an icon to it because it doesn't have an icon. Well, look at this, my friends. It has the same limitation that every pre-built block I've ever seen has. You can't put anything else in it. You can't put an icon in it if you need an icon. You can't put another piece of text in it if you need another piece of text, like this label right here. You can't do a lot of things with it. It does what it's designed to do, and that's it. And if you are in a situation where you use blocks like this all throughout a website, you have created an absolute disaster. You better hope Bev does not ring your phone. You better hope that Fred doesn't come up with a great fucking idea, the way we know clients do. Because when they ask for something, you're going to have to break it to them. Sorry, I use this because we use this block editor thing, and it doesn't quite let me build what I need to build. So what I did is I used this third-party block library called GetWid. You don't even need to know that. But I put those blocks in, and long story short, I can't add the thing you need me to add. It's going to be very, very expensive. That's a conversation you're going to have with your client. And guess who's not going to be on the phone with you to explain it? Rob. Right? That's why I've said, never, ever, 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 ever use a custom block that doesn't allow you to put things in it. Philosophy number one, base level principle. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. Bad idea. Well, Kevin's a moron because he didn't know GetWid exists and that they have a block that does this. Nope, turns out Kevin's not a moron once again. And that block has the same limitations that I've seen every other block have. And I also know that I don't need to have 19 block libraries installed to get very simple, basic things onto my page. Nobody should have to do that. Matt Mullenweg doesn't want that to be your experience. Again, we just pretend, all context gone, all goals gone. Let me just prove Kevin wrong in this one little tiny little situation, and then still fucking fail at doing that. And then they don't want you to get frustrated. They're going to gaslight you. They're going to pretend like you're a moron. They're going to pretend like you don't know what you're doing. They're going to pretend this is so easy. They're just going to gaslight you over and over and over and over again, and then get upset and play the victim when you make a video like this and you get a little agitated. This is if you want to talk about like a barrier to progress, this kind of stuff is the barrier to progress. You know what's not a barrier to progress? The way that, where'd my blog go? The way that the actual 2 Gutenberg contributors responded to my initial video. Hats off to them. Hats off to them. This is what the whole goal was. This is what was promising to see. And hats off to you, Anne. Riyadh, hats off to you, Riyadh. This is a productive conversation. This is a productive response. This is what we need to continue with. Truth be told, I want to use Gutenberg. The people that make the argument of like, it's native WordPress, it's like it's better than having this completely separate layer. Well, I mean, it's not better if it's not better, but it has the potential to be better if it had better direction, leadership. If it was great, I use tools that are great. Like, that's the one thing I should have proven by now, is that if you make a great tool, I'm probably going to use it, and I'm probably going to promote the hell out of it. Even, get this, even if there's no affiliate program. And you know what I'll also do? I'll make a bunch of videos on YouTube, and they won't even have ads running on them, because I don't give a fuck about ad revenue, and I don't give a fuck about affiliate commissions. I give a fuck about best tools, good practices, education, quality of the industry. You could see it play out in all the stuff that I do. I want more ands. I want more Riyadhs. We're going to build these bridges. Let me go back to the camera. Now I'm going to go back to chat. We've got to get the Robs out of the way. We got to get the distractions out of the way. We need more ands. We need more Riyadhs. We're going to build these bridges. We are going to transform the landscape of front-end development in WordPress. That is one of my core missions, like I said in the very beginning. We have to make the block editor better. We need a good block editor. WordPress needs a good, I'm calling it the block editor because that's what they call it. There's some good concepts coming to it. Partially synced patterns, 100% needed. I don't know if they're going to execute on it correctly, but it's needed. Said it was needed in Bricks. Quickly has it. Cornerstone has it, okay? All these builders need to get better. We all need to get better with our practices. All of us can improve across the board. Nobody's perfect. Never said anybody was perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. I've never said that I'm perfect. I'm committed, though. I'm committed. I'm not going to gaslight you and tell you that accessibility doesn't matter. I'm not going to gaslight you and tell you that the block editor is fantastic. Just use it. I'm not going to gaslight you and make video after video just for affiliate commissions and not care what happens to you after that. Those are the things I'm not going to do. But still, people want to attack and have this attitude and then pretend, oh, Kevin doesn't know what he's talking about. Please don't be 10 steps behind and then claim I don't know what I'm doing. That's a distraction. That's annoying. We need more ands. We need more Riyadhs. We got to build the bridges. We got to make things better. I'm going to the chat here. And by the way, this gets people's attention. This starts the conversation. I could make a video like a fucking librarian over here. Like, well, you know, it'd be a lot better if we just kind of did it this way. Maybe if you guys have a spare 15 minutes, you can just consider maybe if this happens. I could do that. I could do 2 hours of that. Nobody's gonna care. Nobody's gonna pay attention. Nobody's gonna share it. Nobody's gonna comment on it. Everybody's gonna ignore it. you have to come out and just be direct. You just have to say it like it is. There's too much back scratching. There's too much like, oh, it's a free project. Real people are why don't you become a contributor? I didn't ask for it to be free. I didn't ask for it to be built by committee. I just love it. And I love WordPress. I love the idea of the CMS. I love what it allows me to do. I love that it's open source. It's the best thing available to me. But don't use that against me and say, but if you have any criticisms, you should be a contributor. You should just donate all your time to make this project better. No, I don't want to join the committee. If I can write a check and just have my problem solved, I would much rather do that. Wrote my check to Bricks, solved a bunch of my problems. Right? Okay, that's an example. All right, in the chat. All right, what's music want here? Let me scroll back up. It's a bunch of back and forth. I saw it in the corner of my eye. Somebody upset. Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. Pretty sure I know who this is. Pretty sure that this is it's mainly one person with a bunch of fake profiles who loves to follow me around the internet. And literally like stalker behavior. Most people have seen the person. Every profile is fake. It doesn't, they should not even be given the time of day. Okay. Yeah, we're not even going to talk about that. Yes, if you act like first of all, if you try to sell stuff to my inner circle without permission in people's DMs, if you then try to get me to sell that thing to them for multi-thousands of dollars sight unseen, if you act a fool, if you then act like a absolute psychopath, yeah, you're going to get kicked out of the inner circle. Just like you'll be kicked out of any group with any semblance of moderation. Okay. But again, this person is not talk about gaslighting, talk about, yeah. Okay. So this doesn't even need to be talked about. There might be another block plugin that does have that one feature you might need. Easy peasy. Exactly. I think that's what I feel like they can't be. That's why I asked, what am I missing? That's why I made the video. What am I missing here? But yeah, they basically said you just need a block plugin, like a third-party plugin for every little thing you need. And then you just have 19 little block editor plugins, and I guess life will be fantastic. Okay. Somebody said something about like their license being shared for ACSS, and it got disabled. Yeah. If you're just first, usually it's you're reselling the license. If you're using an ACSS license and you're an agency and there's 10 people in your agency or 5 people in your agency, and those people are using your license, I don't actually care all that much about that. That's fine. Like whatever. But if you're just taking the license, I could give you the list of sites. I just went down another list. There's a list of sites. Buy it for $4.99, $4.99. Here's a license. And they're just redistributing it, trying to make a bunch of money. Like this is obviously against terms. And so, we catch you doing that, your license is disabled. There's a few different ways. And I will tell you the number of licenses that have been disabled, I can count on one hand. Like this is not something that happens often. I don't even look for it all that often. Usually it's reported by somebody else. And by the way, we have a way to transfer your license. I don't even know of any other product that's doing that in this space. If you bought ACSS and you just decided one day, I don't like this anymore, or I'm not going to use this anymore. You could sell it to somebody else. You just have to go through our system. We built a whole process for you to transfer it to somebody else. I don't know if anybody else is doing. If you don't like automatic CSS, I don't want you to use it. I want you to use it because you love it. So anybody that's complaining about this type of stuff, trust me, they did something really fucking wrong. Because the amount of people that have been kicked out of the inner circle, I think it's like 2 ever. Everybody who pretty much is active in the inner circle, like, knows the culture of the inner circle. They're awesome. They're awesome. We rarely ever have problems in the inner circle. And then there's like 2 people total ever have been kicked out of the inner circle out of thousands. So that should tell you one thing right there. And then the number of ACSS licenses that I've disabled, 5 to 10, somewhere in there. I don't know. Like, it's really fucking small. If somebody's gotten kicked out or had their license disabled, they did something really fucking wrong. Like, really wrong. Like, I don't care about it all that much. It's just, but they'll be the loudest person. There's people coming in, multiple profiles, all fake profiles, this and that. It's just, yeah. 3.0 sneak peek? Not quite yet. But if you're in the ACSS group, we're marching, we're getting very close, okay? There will be an open call for testing 3.0. It's going to be a small group of people. It's going to kind of be a first come, first serve situation. I've got like 2-3 people who I know I want in that group, who I'm just going to invite into that group. But then, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 other people beyond that. We'll keep it nice and tight. And I will say, if you're active in the community, if you're like, known for helping people, if you're known for like posting and all that kind of stuff, you have more of a chance of hearing about it and getting selected for it. So keep that in mind. Okay. Yeah, exactly. As Martin says, people who want to harm your work should be ignored because in the end, there's an equally big stick for everyone. Yeah, we're moving forwards. Like, I'm always thinking the next thing, innovation. How can we do this better? How can we make this more efficient? You're going to see that in 3.0. The 3.0 ACSS is a culmination of a bunch of different ideas and things I've learned over the course of using automatic CSS myself, watching other people use automatic CSS. It's constant evolution. As Tyree says here, explain this etch announcement. So that is just, you're going to hear more about that soon. I can't give any more information right now. I want to. I always want to. I always have to fight myself. I have an internal, there's like one Kevin on this shoulder and another Kevin on this shoulder, and they're arguing with each other. But just tell them what it is. And the other one's like, don't fucking say it. Don't do it. Don't say it. I'm always, because there's a part of me that really wants you to know. But it's not, if I release too much too early, it harms things. Okay. I volunteer as tribute. There's names that I see over and over again in WDD lives and all that stuff. Like these are the people that are more likely to be selected when we do like closed door kind of like, hey, test this thing out. I do have Magic Grid coming. That's going to be in 2.8. So next week will be a 2.8 release. It'll have hopefully hide classes in pro mode. So for those of you who, when you turn on pro mode, you don't want to see the classes anymore and the class suggestion that were turned off, makes total sense. Makes total sense. 2.8, that should be yours. You have that now. We've transitioned almost every property that matters to using variables. Hint, hint. I don't know if that'll give you much information about 3.0, but hint, hint. And it'll have Magic Grid. And Magic Grid, I don't even think I can, I don't think I have the branch pulled up that has Magic Grid in it. I will do a Magic Grid video right before the 2.8 release that kind of shows the concept of it. It's a replacement for auto grid, number one. So if you've used auto grids in automatic CSS, this would ideally be a replacement for auto grid, but it would be much more than that as well. It would be a replacement for almost every situation you're using grid for currently. And so, what I can show you is the difference in the workflow, even though I can't show it to you working, right? So I don't think I can show it to you working. So normally you would have this container, which is your grid, right? And let me go ahead and put 0 padding on the left of this because it had default padding. Okay. So we're going to come in here and you would go grid 3 as an example. And this is even easier with, now we go to 2 and we want 2 to happen at like the M breakpoint or something. And then at S, we want there to be 1. Okay. So what that's done is it's created a 3-column grid on desktop. At the M breakpoint, it'll go to 2 columns. At the S breakpoint, it'll go to 1 column. And because we have contextual menus, you can do all that without writing any classes, right? Okay. So everybody is very familiar with this. Now, that's still annoying. It's annoying because you have to, and notice for a minute, this is the initial concept, right? And I'm literally telling you that this part of my product is annoying. Why am I saying that? Because it is. That's the fact. If I didn't have to do that, if there was a better way to do it, I would prefer the better way. We all would, right? So I'm constantly thinking like, how do we make it better? How do we make it better? How do we make it better? Well, there's this concept of auto grid. Now, first of all, before we get to auto grid, why is this annoying? Because I have to actively think about things. Like I made it 3 columns, which was obvious that I needed that at desktop, but it's not obvious where this needs to break to 2 columns. That's not obvious. It happens to break right there. Okay. Now I go to 1, that's where it's going to become 1 column because that's what I chose, but you have to like look at your design at every breakpoint and really figure that out. So you're looking at multiple breakpoints here, making a manual kind of decision. Okay. And so we add auto grids. So now I come in and we do, which I hardly ever use, but here's like grid auto 3. Okay. Let me put 3 blocks in here just so we can see actual blocks. So there's 3, right? And now look, it's chosen to break it to 2 here. Why did it choose to break it to 2 here? Well, while this is nice, because I don't have to think about how it's going to break at different breakpoints. Look, it stacked it to 1 column already. But the underlying logic here is not really based on anything super relevant. It's only based on something that's semi-relevant, which is your website's content width. It's basically saying, okay, you chose 3 initially, so we're going to figure out based on your content width when this needs to break to 2, when this needs to break to 1. That's what it's doing. But if you've used auto grids, you understand the limitation of you don't get to control really where it breaks, right? It's this arbitrary kind of decision that it makes with its own logic based on your content width of your website. Thank you for the super chat, Ruben. I don't know what it's for. I'll look at that in just a second. Okay. Leave break. Oh my God. Damn it. Okay. Sorry. Thank you, Ruben. My gosh. Ruben to save the day. I got to give you your money back, Ruben. Hold on. I got to give Ruben his money back. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Let me, I love, this is the best part of WDD Live. This is always the best part. Okay. Section. We're going to do this really quick. See, I go to grid and I go 3, grid 3, and I go 2, M, I go 1, S. And as I was saying, let me put some blocks in there. The fact that we have contextual menus makes that really easy, awesome, simple, fast. Okay. And for a long time, we were like, that's just great. This is just everything everybody could ask for. You get to control it at every breakpoint. It's so like, I did that in seconds. Man, that was so fantastic. That was so easy, right? But it still sucks. It still sucks. Okay. I'm saying it's still, why am I saying it sucks? Because I think there's a better way. And so I'm not saying it sucks in general. I'm saying it sucks relative to what I know might be a better way. Okay. But then we came up with auto grids. Let me just show you auto. So everybody saw that. So we go grid auto 3, Bang, just like that. There it is. Look, hey, oh my God. That was so easy, right? And look at this. I don't even have to make any breakpoint decisions. It's just doing it for me. Man, oh man. A lot of people saw that and they were like, I'm sold. Like, I'm done here. But I'll even tell you, that sucks. Relative to what I might know is the real solution here, or an even better solution. We're never done innovating. So imagine this is grid auto 3, but what did I say the downside of the auto grid is? It doesn't break at a super logical point. What it's looking at is the content width of the website, which isn't nearly as important as the width of an element that happens to live in the grid. Because really what we want is to figure out, when does that element look bad? When does it get too squished by the current number of grid columns, okay? So I might be able to use a frame as an example here, so we don't have to build anything from scratch. So just follow my logic pattern here, right? Hey, let's use feature card Victor. Does this look familiar? And then since my current install has these headings defaulting to a different color, we'll just make that one white. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's get rid of all this. Let me refresh. Bricks was pissing down its own leg there for a second. Let's go back here. All right, let's open feature section Victor. Okay, perfect. Now, this grid is already done for me, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take away grid. Well, okay, this shows you, right? We had to do grid 4 here, and then we had to come down here, and we had to choose grid 2 here with the variable on the custom class. And this is just a decision that we made. And let me take this off. Why did we make this decision? Because this is the point at which those cards look terrible. We can all agree, right? Those don't fit. So what do you have to do with normal grid? Well, this is where you change your grid. So you say, now it's going to be 2 columns instead of 4, and now the problem is solved. What is this decision based on? Is it based on the content width of the website, like auto grids? No. It's based on what's happening to this card right here. And then I go down here, and I change it to 1 here, because if it got to here, it'd be too squished if it was still 2. Okay, we understand how this works. That's kind of annoying. So imagine for a second that I could just do this, okay? So I come in here, just take these out, and I just say, I'm at desktop level. Just imagine this is the workflow. There's 2 different ways to do this. Imagine this is the workflow. I just say grid. That's all I say. Then I do one other little thing that I'm not going to show you right now. This is the secret sauce. But I effectively tell this grid what the minimum width of that actual item in the grid is allowed to be, and it's all done. And every break in the grid from, let's say, 4 to 3 columns, from 3 columns to 2 columns, from 2 columns to 1 column, is based on looking at that item and going, oh, you're starting to get a little smaller than I was told you're allowed to be, so I'm going to change the grid structure for you. And so with one variable and one little declaration, which actually makes sense because you're declaring something that has to do with the element in the grid itself, you have a fully responsive grid that will never break and makes all the decisions for you. And you can do the exact same thing by just adding a class called grid. And you can do this for cards. You can do this for hero sections, side-by-side layouts. In fact, you don't even need that extra declaration if it's a 2-column situation. So if it's just something next to something else, you just put grid and move on with your life, and it's automatically responsive, and it's all good. It's all fine and dandy, right? It works if you want 12 items in a column. Now, what's the downside of it? When would you not use this? You're not going to want to use this if you're going to do a bunch of fancy spans, starts and ends, things like that. But if you're doing a lot of the basic level stuff that we do, like side-by-side content, 2-column content, 4-column content, 3-column content, all day long, you're now, instead of going through a page and going, all right, let me take this off, okay? Instead of going, all right, I want to find my grid, and I want to go, all right, it's going to be 4 there, and then I'm going to come down here and see, and let's pretend that none of these are actually on here. So let's get rid of that one. Let's get rid of this one. Okay. So none of this work was done for you yet. So you know you want it to be 4 there. You come down and you're like, yeah, it definitely needs to be like 2 there. Okay. Grid 2. Okay. And then I'm going to come down here and be like, that still looks all right. Okay. Maybe, there it does not look good. Okay. I'm going to go to grid 1 here. Like, that's a lot of different decisions and looking and analyzing that you need to do. You're going to be able to fly down the page going grid, 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 grid. And all the 2 columns are already taking care of themselves for you. Anything that's 3 or more columns, you put 1 extra little declaration on it. I'm going to show you how to do a quick check, and then you just move on to the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one. And your whole layout, everything about your layout, automatically responsive. You never have to worry about any other breakpoint. I think it's phenomenal. I still haven't built like full sites with it yet. So when it's released in 2.8, this is why it's going to be released behind an experimental flag. It's going to basically be like, hey, this thing is available to you, but it's an experiment. And we want you to use it, probably not on a production website. Hint, hint, wink, wink, right? Because it might go away. If we discover that there's some massive limitation with it that I have not encountered yet, well, we got to pull it, right? We got to just, all right, that didn't work. Let's do away with it. But I think it's going to be pretty good. And so I want a bunch of people to experiment with it. And then if people are like, dude, this is great. This is phenomenal. Then we'll include it. It'll go from experimental to a full feature. And then you can use it safely in production. But I don't want to just make assumptions about it. I want to test it out in the real world. And I want people to see if they can find any uh-ohs, right? And if they report some uh-ohs, maybe we can get around the uh-ohs. I don't know. If we can't get around the uh-ohs, then we'll just take it out, which is why it's an experimental feature. But just imagine you just go grid, 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 grid. And then in some places, just one little extra little declaration, very easy to add. And I'm actually looking for easier ways to add it, but it's already fairly easy to add. And it just, whole thing's responsive automatically. It just works. All your grid problems are solved. I think it's going to be good. Okay. I got to get out of here in a minute. I don't even know how long we've been doing this. 2 o'clock, 11, 12, 1. Oh my God, 3 hours. Okay. All right. Let's do one question or two and then we'll get out of here. Container queries. Oh, by the way, this is auto grid. This new, I'm calling it Magic Grid. Magic Grid does not use container queries. So if you're thinking, oh, Kevin, that's going to be the limitation. Container queries aren't supported. It does not use container queries. Okay. That's what's even better about it. Okay. So when container queries, somebody said it's at 90%, is Frame's going to make use of this over breakpoints, hard-coded clamps? Most likely, yes. Which will be even better with Bricks components functionality in it. Man, things in 2024, guys, is going to get amazing. There's just going to be, it's going to be so fun. 2024 is going to be so fun. Yeah. Oh, okay. Very, very important point. Please don't inundate Rob with negative comments, message. Do not, if you want to make a comment on a video, on his video, make it productive. Find a way to do a better job than I do at sprinkling sugar on things. Okay. I'm not the sprinkle sugar guy. And when I do sprinkle, like, I have to try really hard. Okay. But if you can find it within yourself to sprinkle a little sugar on your comments to Rob, then please do that. Do not DM Rob. Don't private message Rob. Don't make everything just out in public, okay? If you have an anonymous profile or fake profile, don't comment on Rob's stuff. Don't message Rob, okay? Don't talk about Rob. Don't post Rob's video. Don't post my video. I'm a big fan of, like, I want people to be people online, right? I don't like I'm just not a fan of the full anonymity thing. And we see the problems it causes. When people feel like they're fully anonymous, they just are free to act a fucking fool. Okay? And it's like, it's a problem. It's a big problem. So be productive in your comments. Don't send DMs. Don't harass him. Don't call him names. Don't insult him. Find really productive things to say. Try to have sound arguments. Try to back up your arguments with examples. If I've shown the thing in a video, you can share mine. Like, I've got plenty of videos. If somebody's like, that's not how sections work, just show them the sections video. Let them see it in action, okay? Like I said in the beginning, I want to build bridges. I don't want to have all this drama. The drama comes from being gaslit and like people, the minute they talk down to me, like I don't know what I'm talking about. When I've clearly demonstrated it across hundreds of hours, like it's just stupid. It's just that kind of drama is stupid. We have to break through that to get to the actual productive side of all of this, which needs to happen. We all agree Gutenberg needs to get better. We all agree these page builders need to get better. And we all agree that we all need to get better at our jobs. We all are trying to improve, okay? So we got to get through the drama, noise, nonsense. They take it, when I'm direct about something, they take it as, like I said in the beginning, an attack on their firstborn child. I'm not. I don't sprinkle sugar. I just say what I see, okay? I just say what I see. And a lot of people don't see what happens behind the scenes with these people DMing me, right? All this trash and like, attack stuff. Them blocking me. Them talking shit. Like literal, like talking shit. Like literally threatening me with physical violence. Like, I know you're not going to fucking do that in person, so don't do it on the internet. Okay? The keyboard does not help you in real life. Like, I just know they would not say that in real life, so don't say it to me on the internet. Or I will get riled up and I will call you out, right? And I will be way more direct. But that stuff happens. People don't even see it happen. And then when I get into like a tussle with somebody, like in a group, and they see it, and they're like, man, Kevin's real aggressive with this person. Yeah, you know why? There's history. That person, I have DMs from that person, right? Or I have messages that they put in other groups from that person. You might not see what I've seen from that person and why they deserve to have that back. See, I think it's a John Bellion lyric. It's a great John Bellion lyric. He's actually talking about his girlfriend, but it really applies to, like, it's kind of the philosophy I have. I don't have a problem if there's not one, right? That's kind of what he said. I don't have a problem if there's not one. But if people want there to be a problem, I don't have a problem giving it back to them. And that's what you'll see every single time. Like, no, I'm not just like, oh, yeah. I'm not just going to like retreat into the bushes and the shadows. Like, if you want there to be a problem, I'm fully sponsored, baby. I'll give it right back to you. Full stop. Like, so if you don't want there to be a problem, don't start the problem in the first place. And that's what they always do. They start a problem. And then when they're like, oh, he didn't just disappear. Oh, he stood up for himself. Then they want to act all victim-like. They're like, oh my God, look at what he's saying. Look at it. Check the record, my friend. Check the record. Let's just facts, logic, reason. The minute it's like personal attack, no, it's on now. It's on now. I don't stand for that shit. I hate that shit. All right. We got to get out of here. Man, is music still like, still going at it. Still going at it. John Bellion equals GOAT. Dude, I 100% agree. You know what? I'm going to go next co-working session with Kevin. We're going straight John Bellion in the background. That's what we're doing. Okay. All right, guys, it's been fun. I got to get out of here. Thank you for being here. I mean, we had a phenomenal showing today. Yeah, this is fantastic. Tyree, let's do a work session this week. Not today. You guys are trying to kill me. Let me see. Let's see. Let's keep track of the days. Maybe tomorrow. I think I want to do one tomorrow. Let me get one in tomorrow. We'll do a co-working with Kevin tomorrow in the Inner Circle. Sponsored by John Bellion. It'll be fantastic. So if you guys want to join that, you can. It'll be in the Inner Circle. And that's it. I got to get out of here. I love you guys. Peace. See you soon.